It was just west of Clarksville. You did. So I was the third car behind the wreck.
That is
And I would have seen it if I hadn't been playing it. But I sat there for an hour and a half. So the line of traffic is always long, trying to get past there. And it's just one lane. So
I'm shocked there aren't more wrecks there.
You know, where we live, it's a lot of long concerns. It's always, you know, like, oh, they might die. Oh, they might die. That's, here's some of the, you know, by cable, and he's been talking about it. You know, malfunction.
Woke up in a different world today. What? Gee, man. I have to get ready for this. That's crazy.
John,
No way. Nobody knows. Maybe I wasn't here today. Did I tell you? Y'all have a party.
where do I get a t-shirt for the John Bacon store?
Oh, mercy. Lord have mercy. Right. I'm gonna start making t-shirts.
This should be, and it has a list of everything on the back.
I'm gonna make t-shirts.
I was just wondering.
I appreciate that.
It'll be like 2026.
It's like always. Oh my gosh.
And I think this will be one of the most field-oriented meetings we've ever had.
yeah, finances.
They said we don't. Okay.
Is this just a new thing?
Okay, good morning. The August 20th, 2026. I think we have some folks joining online. So hybrid meeting of the Charter Authorization Panel is called to order. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Arkansas Department of Education auditorium and ask that you please silence all your electronic devices. The goal is to facilitate a fair and responsible hearing. So for the record, I ask each person to please state your name, title, and each time you speak into the microphone. I ask that you continue to speak clearly in the microphone throughout your presentation for the benefit of the panel, this audience, and the viewing audience. This meeting is being live streamed and recorded, and a transcript of the meeting will be posted on the DESE website. So again, good morning to everyone. Good morning, panel members. I don't think we have any panel members joining us online, so everyone is in person today. So far, I haven't gotten any feedback that's any changes to the agenda, so we will follow it as it is written. And before we get started, our first action item on the agenda is for Ms. Rainey to come forward. Rainey here? Yes. And to give us an overview of the procedures for today's action item agenda. Sorry.
Good morning. Julia Rainey, attorney for ADE. Let's see, so all persons, with the exception of attorneys representing the parties who plan to provide testimony during the hearing, must be sworn by the chair of the panel. The charter school or applicant will have 20 minutes to present its case to the panel for approval of the proposed charter school application renewal or request. The chair may grant additional time if necessary. Parties opposed to the charter school's application renewal or request will have 20 minutes to present its case to the authorizer. This is the total amount of time allotted for the presentation regarding opposition to the application renewal or request. The chair of the panel may grant additional time if necessary. The charter school or applicant shall have 5 minutes to respond to any arguments in opposition to the charter school application renewal or request. The chair of the panel may grant additional time if necessary. The authorizer will follow the presentations with discussion of the public charter school application renewal request and questions, if any, to the open enrollment public charter school or applicant opposing parties or both. Additionally, an affected school district may submit written comments concerning the application to the authorizer to be considered at the time of the authorizer's review of the application. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. So on to our action agenda. First, we have presenter Dr. Darrell Smith, Assistant Commissioner. Will you please come forward and present your agenda item?
Good morning, panel. Darrell Smith, Arkansas Department of Education, Assistant Commissioner. Today we have one item on our action agenda, the Institute of Creative Arts. They were required to come before this panel to submit their school improvement plan based on their 24-25 letter grade. Such time they have at this time, they have submitted their school improvement plan and have addressed the issues that we were requested at the last meeting, which was to address their school improvement plan, some of the financial concerns that the panel had and that the department has as well. And so they are here today to answer your questions and to present their corrective action plan for their letter grade, as well as answer any questions related to their finances. I will say, not to steal their thunder, but we will tell you that they have, as the proficiency grades have come out over the last, from the 25-26 Atlas, they have shown they are one of the highest performing schools as far as growth in number of students that are more proficient now than they were back in 24-25. So certainly should be commended for that, for some of the corrective action that they've already taken place. So just wanted to make sure we put that on the record for them on the front end, that there's some things that are going really well at their school. Certainly, sir, there's some concerns that certainly that will be addressed today.
Thank you. So before we get started with the presentation, I would like to ask all that will be giving any type of testimony today on behalf of the Institute for Creative Arts, both in person or remote. Please stand and raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony or statement you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Okay, thank you. Okay. So who's going to do the presentation may come forward. As a reminder, please identify who you are for the record each time you speak, and you have 20 minutes for your presentation.
Good morning. Mills Bryant, attorney at law with Mitchell Williams Law Firm, on behalf of the Institute of the Creative Arts. First, I would like to formally request to the chair an extension on ICA's presentation beyond the 20 minutes that are allotted in the CAP's general operating procedures. We believe it's necessary that ICA have as much time as possible to address the breadth and the depth of deficiencies that were noted in the deficiency letter we received from the charter office. So we renew our request that we previously sent via email at this time.
Okay. Will there be anyone else other than you presenting today?
Yes, there will. I will go through our list of presenters, but we have presenters for the financial pieces who are equipped to answer questions of the panel. We have presenters on the academic pieces, and I believe there's 4 or 5 individuals that are going to come up and briefly present on those items.
Let's start with the 20 minutes and see from there, because you will have time for questions afterwards, and so if there's other pieces that you want to dig deeper into, I think we'll have time for that. So
I understand that. I think our presentation will definitely go beyond 20 minutes, and so if that's something you will entertain and be open to, I appreciate that. We just want to adequately address the deficiencies that were noted in the letter and make sure this panel not only has the opportunity to ask questions, but understand the full extent and scope of our position. So we'll start with the 20 minutes and see if we
usually
need to
when
renew.
there's not opposition to a request, I usually give an additional 5. So if you can make within that time frame, you should be good.
Thank you. I'll begin my presentation, so you got
Thanks.
some time. So today we're here in a spirit of cooperation. We're here with open minds and with open books because the panel has asked us to respond to this notice of performance deficiency. We want to share the full picture and also the work that still needs to be done. We also want to share the progress that our students have made, as Darrell pointed out, and the plan that we're carrying forward. We understand it's the panel's responsibility to conduct the due diligence, yet hope that we also take this time to understand all of the context to the miscommunications and situation with the charter office that ICA has experienced. And we hope that you can understand the next steps that this school is taking financially and academically. My intent is to combat section 1 of the deficiency letter that we received, portions A, B, and C of that letter. What those stated is an explanation as to why the school did not appear before the CAP on May 21st and June 18th. 2, why the school has not been responsive in producing a comprehensive school improvement plan. And 3, how the school will correct its communication and responsiveness going forward. After that, members of ICA will address the remaining 3 portions, sections 1, C, D, and E, along with the remaining sections 2 and 3 addressed in the deficiency letter. I hope this brief history that I'm going to provide will address the deficiencies noted in the letter in sections A, B, and C. So let me walk through the path that brought us here today for your benefit of the facts. ICA opened its doors in 2024 under a 5-year charter contract, serving students in 9th through 12th grade. We're still quite a young school in our 2nd year, and with fewer than 50 students starting off in a small testing pool, we received an F letter grade for the first school year. We fully acknowledge and take accountability for that result. However, we want you to understand that we're working towards academic progress and that we're working towards financial progress. Despite what has been communicated to the CAP at this point, ICA has been communicative and ICA has been responsive to the charter office and to other ADE entities throughout this school improvement plan process. On December 18th, ICA appeared before this panel with a root cause analysis. They gave the root cause analysis, and on January 29th returned and implemented a school improvement plan before this panel. They showed it to you and it was approved. It was also expressed to ICA informally that it was surprising that a school in its infancy was already required to appear before this panel. ICA did so, however, and achieved approval of its school improvement plan unanimously on January 29th. However, in March, 3 panel members, I believe Dr. Wright McMurray, visited the campus on March 5th, Dr. Crystal Bashirs on March 6th, and Dr. John Bacon on March 10th, toured our facility, saw our teachers, saw our students, and we perceived that they offered a general amount of encouragement to our school and its plans moving forward. And our school really appreciated that, and it meant a great deal to our school. However, the next part of the story was a bit less smooth. In the spring and summer of 2026, the relationship and communication between ICA and the charter office began to break down. The charter office reached out to ICA in March regarding additional improvement plans supplementing those that had already been approved by this panel. And this was odd given CAP's previous unanimous approval of their original school improvement plan. ICA then experienced difficulty coordinating timing, delivery of documents, and requested materials by the charter office, and then had an on-site visit experience that did not go according to plan and was a clear breakdown in communication, among some personality conflicts that took place at the on-site visit. However, with respect to ICA's communication with the charter office in this panel, there are some facts we know to be true, and we want to make you apprised of the facts as we know them to be true with respect to the communication ICA has had with the charter office, and hopefully through the charter office to this panel. We don't state these facts to assign any motives, but because we want clearer communication moving forward on both sides that likely could have prevented a lot of this confusion. Here are the facts. ICA attended a March 13th, 2026 planning meeting with Dr. Turker and his team regarding the school improvement plan and was cooperative there. ICA attended a March 19th meeting with Dr. Turker to coordinate an on-site visit for March 30th. During that meeting, it was communicated that ICA needs to submit an additional school improvement plan. And at that meeting, Dr. Russell notified Dr. Turker that ICA would not be able to attend the May 21st meeting. However, it would submit required documents if necessary and reschedule if possible. So that was noted at the outset. Then the on-site visit happened on March 31st, and this meeting was far from productive. The meeting can most conservatively be characterized as a personality conflict and fraught with miscommunication. However, it's ICA's perception that they were attempting to cooperate, provide all relevant data that was requested, and any documentation that was asked for. However, they felt they were met with resistance. After that, ICA submitted its school improvement plan and supplemental documents on May 4th, 2026, before the May 21st CAP meeting and within the required timeline required by this CAP panel. ICA submitted its previously approved January 29th school improvement plan at this point because it had already been approved by you all. Interestingly, ICA received a response to its May 4th submission that now ICA was to appear before the CAP on June 18th, 2026. So the communication to the to ICA was that essentially you've been taken off the agenda for the May meeting and you've been moved to the June meeting. So at that point, we perceived that that was a relief of our requirement to attend the May 21st CAP panel meeting. ICA followed up via telephone call with Dr. Turker to confirm that their attendance was not required and state that they were unable to be there at the May 21st meeting and requested to be able to be taken off the agenda. However, according to the deficiency letter, their presence was indeed required. But if you look at the agenda for the May 21st meeting, their documents are not on that agenda, their name is not on that agenda. And so if we were required to be at the May 21st meeting, we sincerely apologize that we were not there and take full responsibility of that. However, those are the facts as to that meeting. ICA on June 2nd then received notice that it should appear on June 18th and that it should supplement by updating their additional documents and providing an additional school improvement plan to the charter office. Our understanding is that those documents never made it to you. The documents that we submitted previously for the May meeting were passed on to you. However, any supplemental documents that we gave to the charter office did not reach the panel to be reviewed at the June 18th meeting. Additionally, the charter office placed a site visit summary on that agenda for the June 18th meeting, which mischaracterized the site visit, as I've mentioned, that occurred on March 30th. It was alleged that ICA didn't submit a school improvement plan. It did. It was alleged there was no verifiable data to support projections. There is. As you will see today, we plan to fully address all of those noted deficiencies. ICA notified the charter office 1 week before the June 18th, 2026 meeting that it would not be able to attend and request being taken off the agenda for that meeting. However, that did not occur. And at the last CAP meeting, which I've reviewed and we've all seen, you heard one side of the story as to ICA. Our job here today, as it brings us, is to be here with open minds, to be here with open books, and fully intend on cooperating with the charter office and with the CAP panel. Again, ICA apologizes that it did not attend the May 21st meeting and the June 18th meeting. We regret and we take full responsibility there for that. Despite the reasoning for those things, and despite the breakdowns in communication, we're here today and remain willing to work through these issues. ICA is here with its leadership, financial consultants, academic coordinators, and student support team ready to answer your questions. We're not trying to relitigate the past. We want to look towards the future on the positive things that are taking place at ICA and relieve any concerns that you may have. So with us here today, I'll introduce who we have. We have Chad Hull, who is our board chair. Paul Parnell, who is an attorney and has been helping ICA with the new market tax credit. Michael Johnson, who is the dean principal and how will help out with the academic presentation. Kelly Lucero, who is here on behalf of ICA as academic coordinator and SPED coordinator. And there are other individuals here equipped and ready to answer questions if necessary. Like I said, we want a productive relationship with the charter office and with the charter panel. And we want a productive relationship with everyone that oversees them. All we're asking for is the chance to show the panel what ICA has done, what ICA can do, and that our people are talented and dedicated. Our data is moving in the right direction, and our school improvement plan is being implemented. We have trusted advisors in the financial space that are guiding us through that process. What we ask you for is for reasonable operational space to implement these plans and runways to carry out those plans. We understand the need for additional due diligence and communication between us and the charter office, and we welcome that. We are here to show that we will cooperate with clear benchmarks, regular communication, and accountability. With regard to the charter office and communication with that office, we're asking for a more direct and collaborative working relationship. ICA fully intends to do its part by responding promptly, confirming schedules, providing documents and submissions, and making sure the right people are in the right place at the right time. We hope the charter office will likewise share reports and factual concerns with us before they are made public and before they are acted upon by this charter panel, as we believe has not been the case in the past. That would be helpful to everyone, to us, to you, and to them, and most importantly to our students. We acknowledge ICA has not handled every situation correctly, and we apologize for that, and we look forward to moving forth. We should have appeared at the May and June meetings if you so requested us to be there, and we should have made our scheduling and submissions clearer. We apologize for not doing so. We respectfully ask the panel to recognize the context of this young school, consider the measurable academic growth that we see, and allow ICA to continue implementing its school improvement plan and work with its financial advisors to move forward through its infancy. We simply ask that the accountability process leave our leadership and staff enough room to teach, to support students, and to carry out the work that this panel has asked us to do. Now I will turn it over to our team, beginning with a message from ICA Board Chair Chad Hull.
Good morning. My name is Chad Hull, longtime school superintendent, business person from the Fort Smith, Arkansas area, also right across the line there in Oklahoma. And I said thank you for your time being on the board, because I said a long time ago when I was superintendent I would never be on the board. I sure as heck wouldn't be the president or chairman, because my time was valuable and I avoided going to meetings like this. But we appreciate your Chairman McMurray, all that you do. But I've been 3 years since I was superintendent. Not talked in public, kind of nervous, but first thing I want to talk about is diversity of our campus. We have every race of person on our campus. Fort Smith's home of African Americans, Hispanic. At one time the Vietnamese come into Fort Smith. 30 years ago, we have our better students. Just everybody's at campus. We have kids, the richest kids, the poorest kids, everybody's there. It provides a service that nobody else does. I worked a long time for Career Tech, one of the biggest ones in America there out of Oklahoma. We had 10 campuses. We had electricians, we had nurses, EMTs, we did it all. We provided a service. When you talk about, Institute for Creative Arts, our kids love to sing. They love to dance. We love to act. If you come around Fort Smith in the public events, you'll see Creative Arts. Our school has an event going every week, and a lot of people attending. When I talk about diversity, not just in racial, it's hair color. We have every color of hair on that campus anytime you go there. And another thing we thought about was so unique. I was superintendent for a long time. I put together what I would call the graduation. This year at our graduation, I'd never saw this before. Our students, the march, I'm not sure what the tune is called when you march up for graduation. We had 10 of our students over there playing music and doing their thing. It was kind of unique, the interaction of it. But our school is a good school. We provide a need for it. We have a great community support. We're not just financially. The biggest hitters around Northwest Arkansas and Fort Smith give money to this place. But besides that, we have people that don't have that kind of money. They give their time and effort. They come and help these kids out. And our staff is getting better and better all the time. It's the first, these people, this school's not been here this long. We're putting together and getting better all the time. We're proactive on school improvement. And if the board here sees stuff we need to be doing different, phone call away or visit. It's a beautiful campus. We're looking forward to great things. Like I said, I've not been in public speaking in a while, and I am kind of nervous. But we're happy with our leadership. They're proactive. And if you know our staff, our leadership, they actually have a kind heart, and they're making a difference in kids' lives. And I'm trying to think what else I missed here. If you have any questions on me, I'll be happy to answer them. But it's a good school, and my family goes back for years in education. My daughter's University of Arkansas graduate and a professor at the University of Tennessee now, and a law professor. So we're all about diversity and doing things, but it provides a need. We got great kids. Not just these kids, when I used to deal with art teachers, are kind of unique. Our kids are unique. We provide a niche for them, and we are making a difference, and we appreciate your help any way we can. Thank you.
Hello and good morning. I'm Paul Parnell. I'm an attorney with Rose Law Firm, and I'm here to visit about the New Markets tax credit structure and the implications on the school. My practice is primarily in the New Markets tax credit area, and so if I talk a little too deep, just give me a nod and I'll try to step back a little bit. I know there's time afterwards for questions, but please interrupt me with questions if I say something that is not quite clear. My intention is to quickly address the overall structure of this organization. It is unique, but to also talk about the New Markets tax credit program, the benefits are brought to it, and then how that can benefit the school going forward during the period. So as part of its fundraising campaign, the school, to complete the building, the school qualified or was in an eligible census tract for New Markets tax credits. That's a federal tax credit program. It's been around since 2001. It has been used throughout the country, but here, particularly in Arkansas, it has really taken hold, and there are projects scattered throughout the state. It has been used to help develop charter school campuses throughout the state. And so this one was another opportunity consistent with those. I'll admit on the front end, at least on ones that I have worked on, this was the first school that was new. The other New Market tax credit financings that I've worked on with schools were already well established. So this one was a little unique. And I mention that because it was really critically important for the school to engage with the right partners as part of the New Markets tax credit transaction. When you look at these transactions, there's a couple of parties that are a little unique. One is the federal tax credit investor. That's the party that is going to put the dollars into the project. They're going to look for a tax credit in return, not their dollars. So they're going to make an investment into the project. Over a 7-year period, they're going to get a tax credit to recoup their investment. And then at the end of the 7-year period, once the tax credit compliance period is expired, the tax credit investor steps away. And so the project receives the benefit. The other party involved in the transaction is called a Community Development Entity, or CDE. In this particular project, our CDE was critical. It was Civic Builders, Inc. out of New York. It's a national organization that helps and assists with charter schools. They have a CDE arm that helps do the New Market tax credit transactions for charter schools. But then they have a breadth of others, advisory and consulting services to work with charter schools. And so as you learn more about Civic Builders, they advise charter schools throughout the country. And they're a key player in the transaction. And then, of course, there's the project. These tax credits, as you can imagine, they're highly competitive. And the reason for that is because they provide a substantial project subsidy. anywhere from 20 to 25%. So on this project, the total tax credits available and the net subsidy at the end of the day was just over just under $6.7 million. $6.7 million of federal tax credit subsidy that came in, and at the end of the 7-year period, the project gets to keep it. I always tell my clients that I believe, and maybe I'm biased because this is my practice area, this is the best program that is out there. Through this program, you get your funding on the day of closing. You don't have to wait until it's placed in service, but you get access to these dollars day of closing, and you get to use them. And all you have to do, at least for us, all we have to do during that compliance period, we don't have to hit every target that we set out to. We are given runway under the program. All we have to do is sit at the location where this project is located and continue to operate to the best of our ability. That's key. That's unlike most other programs where if you fail, they will come back and try to do a recapture. That's not the case here. We're given runway. What we have to do is we have to continue to operate in this low-income community, which we have done, and you get the benefit. And then at the end of the 7-year period, the investor steps away. That benefit retains with the project. So that sounds really good on the front end, and that's usually why clients like me, and then this gets into the part where they don't like me. To make all of this work, it requires a very complicated and complex structure. This structure is dictated by the federal tax code. Sometimes I always take the blame for it. I try to push it off on others and try to take the credit for the good side. But the reality is, it is a very complicated structure, and that is what has impacted this project here. To make this work, the entity, there has to really be two parties involved. The project sponsor, which is CSA, the Community School of the Arts. But then there has to be a qualifying business that can't be identical to, but can be related to the project. In this case, that's the Community for the Center of Arts, CCA. CSA and CCA, again, they can't be identical. They have to be separate in order for this to work for the tax credit program. And so that's why we have this dual structure. And so then you may ask, well, Paul, neither of those are the Institute for the Creative Arts, the charter school. That's right. The Institute for the Creative Arts, it can use the building, but it really isn't a good party to be a part of the federal tax credit structure. Why? Because the tax credit structure, in order to comply, it has to be structured as a loan. And as you all know, the charter schools, they can't take out these long-term loans. And even though these loans are intended to be forgiven at the end of 7 years, they're still loans. And so the Institute for the Creative Arts doesn't really fit into that. And so that drives this complex structure that we have here. So the way this is structured with the Community School of the Arts, the Community School of the Arts is the one that is the project sponsor. It has to find a way to contribute its assets down to, or a related entity, that's CCA. That entity is going to be the New Market Tax Credit project borrower. It's called a QualiC B, a Qualifying Active Low-Income Community Business. The purpose of that business to be that QualiC B, that active low-income community business, it has to stand there and be a developer of the school. And so that's why it takes the property down, it receives those funding proceeds, completes the building, and enters into a leasing transaction. That lease is what gives it the ability to be a qualifying business to qualify for the new markets. So that complicated leasing structure we have really starts from that programmatic requirement of having a business. Again, this transaction structure is a little complicated because the ICA is unique. It can't stand in these shoes, right? So what we have to do, the Community School of the Arts, CSA, has to take a lease back from the project developer, CCA. Whenever the Community School of the Arts takes that lease back, it then has to enter into that new lease with ICA so that ICA can use the property. All of that is qualifying under the tax credits. Now, what's key to all of this is making sure that the tax credit structure stays in place. To make that happen, the investor and the other parties involved require that several funds be set aside and specifically set up for CCA and CSA. And so each of those entities have to have and maintain various reserve accounts, maintain certain debt service coverage ratio compliance, and do some other reporting obligations to that CDE. The CDE just wants to make sure you're operating. So they put those funds in place, those reserve funds in place, put those reporting requirements in place to make that happen. And so in effect, when you all look at it, it looks like we're keeping two sets of books. And truth be told, we are, because we have to. We have to have those separate segregated accounts to maintain our compliance with the new market tax credit structure. Now, After the end of the 7-year period, as that shakes out, this all goes away. We get to collapse it, we get to undo it. We don't have to maintain the integrity of that structure because we've achieved the benefit. But during this initial 7-year period, we do. And that's why there is a separate set of books and records there. Now, what is also beneficial about this structure, though, when we have that lease between the Institute for the Creative Arts and CSA, that lease, it is initially structured as a 30-year lease. That is because it needs to be in compliance for the program. But after the 7-year period, that lease can go away, and it is often anticipated that after the end of the compliance period, it in fact will. And so in this instance, what we have done is we have built that lease and designed that lease so that the terms of it, they're not at fair market rates or anything of that nature. It's purely designed to satisfy the tax credit requirements. That's it. At the end of the 7-year period, it'll go away. And again, if anything sounds, if you have questions, please let me know. Now, that's the leasing structure. That's the compliance structure. Now, the Institute, when you look at the tax credit structure, we admit that we had some pretty good projections in terms of what the enrollment would be. And the enrollment has not hit those objectives. The parties involved in this, Civic Builders, Regions Bank, heavily underwrote this project, put together significant financial projections, did significant due diligence. If you have not been through a new market tax credit closing, it's an arduous process. We did not hit those projections. But what's interesting, Civic is an ideal partner because they are in this space and they know that new schools need assistance. And so we have a good partnership with them. We also have a partnership with Regions. We also have a relationship with our outside lender, Hope Credit Union, as well, who is also active in the charter school finance area. So we have the right partners in place. And so even though the projections haven't been hit, the enrollment projections rather, the tax credit structure is sound. It is projected to go the 7 years. It's not in jeopardy. And so the school is well positioned to receive that full benefit. And once it does, all of that goes away, the complexity, and then they don't need me anymore. I'll turn it over to the school. Okay. All right, I'll turn it over to the school to get a little more detailed about the budgets. Thank you.
Hello, Kathy Carty. I'm with ValueMetric. It's a CFO, accounting, bookkeeping services. I've been retained to work on the books and going to be the CFO for ICA, CSA, and CCA. And so I'm here today to present to you the budget. We have prepared in Appendix 2, if y'all have that. We've got Appendix 2 and Appendix 3. We have the budget first. That's a budget based on 125 students enrolled. I'll wait for it.
Sorry, we got these, you can see the appendix. Just in case you don't have it.
No, good. So Appendix 2.
Sorry,
towards the
before you
back.
go on, just,
Yes.
so are these documents that you guys have already had access to for the charter office?
Yes.
So this is the same as what's in our folder?
It's exactly what was submitted, yes.
Okay.
This button, which one? Okay, we're gonna go back to the appendix. Do we wanna go to the appendix, is that?
Oh, you want to go to the appendix is not in the PowerPoint.
Okay, so the appendix is not gonna be in the PowerPoint presentation, so.
So, just a second.
Yes.
Okay, so what we just received,
Mm-hmm,
is it a part of what was submitted to the charter office for pre-review?
yes.
But, so what is what is different from here than what you're getting ready to show us there? Because they just said that it was not in the PowerPoint presentation.
They're saying that the
I can answer
appendices were not.
Mills Bryant, attorney. What is in this book is exactly what we submitted. There were 4 appendices to the PowerPoint presentation that were submitted to the CAB previously. We're just doing this for your convenience so that you can see it and you have to shuffle through documents. But the appendix is not on the PowerPoint presentation, but it was submitted beforehand. So that's just what the book supplement.
Okay, I just wanted to be clear. Okay, great.
Okay.
Go ahead.
No, you're, all right, so Appendix B is, has a summary in front. That's based on enrollment of 125 students. We also prepared a budget right behind that one, a few pages. That's a contingency budget.
Excuse me, you said appendix B?
Appendix 2, I'm sorry. Sorry,
That's
Appendix
fine,
2.
just making sure.
And behind that is the contingency budget, and it's based on 100 students. We felt like we needed to present both of those budgets. And so, in looking at the budget, that is the budget based on 125, we have, the main difference between those two budgets is the charter.
I'm sorry,
Facility.
I don't mean to interrupt you again. Our members are trying to get on the same page with where you are. And so
Okay.
you'll just give us just a second
Yeah.
to make sure we're all in the same place.
While we do that, tell us the difference between Appendix 2 and Appendix 3. Is it just the number of students?
Yes,
So
yes.
Appendix 2 is how many? students?
125,
And
and Appendix 3 is 100.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
So we were asked to provide, what our enrollment was gonna be at 125. Then we also provided a contingency budget at 100. So those are the two budgets. Appendix 2 is probably the budget I wanna focus on. So that is the budget where we included the student growth funding, that was new this year for us, and also the charter facility funding, which is also added this year. We're in our, second, third full year, and so those added this year. Now, also noted in that is that we do have private funding up at the top, the total local revenue. That is funding that comes from grants and private contributions. That is the $275,000 budget there. We already have people that are committed to giving us private dollars to the tune of about $350,000. At the time of this budget, it was $275,000, but we're constantly trying to add new people that will contribute their private dollars or grants that we try to write for. So that number has gone up slightly. The number in 19,900 account for $500,000, that is a combination of a couple of things. The school does a fundraiser in November, and last year that fundraiser raised about $400,000. That's our major fundraiser. This year we're expecting more than that. We're thinking that it could be anywhere from $550,000 to $500,000, and so that is the majority of that money that we will raise. But also, as Paul has pointed out, we have this sponsoring organization called CSA, and CSA has been around for years, and they're there, teaching the students pay tuition to learn the arts, to learn how to play the piano and how to be an actor and all those things. And so that sponsoring entity has the ability and the wherewithal to give money to ICA as the sponsoring entity. So if there's a timing difference maybe on receiving funds from, say, the fundraiser not being until November, CSA can move those funds over to ICA instantly, and there's no liquidity issues, and no banks going into the negative bank accounts or anything like that. That money is just simply moved over. So the real issue would be if we had, like I said, a timing difference where we needed the money a little bit ahead of time, CSA can move that over, and then when the fundraiser happens, ICA can move that money back to CSA. It is, structured. We've made it a legal, kind of a structure between ICA and CSA, that it's a line of credit between those two organizations. And so it's legally recognized that way. And I handle, as you can imagine, as Paul pointed out, our partners, Civic, Hope, all of these organizations require numerous financial statements, budgets, forecasts, cash flows, and those are all done, and they also require those for ICA as well. And so those are done outside of e-finance. I prepare those under generally accepted accounting principles so that they have that documentation to see, and they can see CSA and ICA and how they work in tandem together to be able to have the liquidity they need. So again, I'm sorry for the confusion with the appendices, but do you have any questions?
Well, we'll save those for after
Okay.
presentations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, panel, and apologies for our tardiness this morning. That wreck kind of got us backwards. Michael Johnson, Institute for the Creative Arts, Dean of School, and I will be going through the academic portion of this. I want to start off with a snapshot of the spring of 2026 and what we have already done and implemented. So within 2026, we established an English Math Tier 3 one-on-one RTI intervention program. This involved tutoring. This is not your online tutoring. This is in-person tutoring with teachers who have the students' knowledge and where they are and where they stand and what they need help with, primarily focused on our students who were only level 1 on the end-of-year ALICE assessment, and based off of the data achieved from that. We identified Ms. Lucero as an academic coordinator to oversee Tier 3 RTI interventions and work with our tutors to help those students. Students spent time weekly in the Atlas portal working on Atlas skills and working within that system to get a better understanding of how to use that system. Students practice these skills in the classroom on those Atlas tools. Again, if you've not used that system, it is not intuitive, so having the kids understand how that system works is to their advantage. And we established an assessment coordinator who took the time to aggregate the data, do data analysis, and help identify those students, who was our history teacher. Like I said, the tutoring was not virtual, it was in person. And on top of that, we made sure that all of our teachers that had less than 3 years of experience in the classroom had a tutor both in the school and with APSRC, so that we knew that they were teaching and being productive all of the 25-26 school year. We've also implemented some new programs in the 26-27 school year. Dr. McMurray Wright came down and helped us kind of figure out some CTE things. We have added film and photography, but we also added 2 H2 pathways, which we did not previously have, H2 pathways in marketing and software development, because they felt that is what our students would need to sell themselves as artists. I also have in here our enrollment progress. So this was 24, 25, 25, 26, and 26, 27. Our first year, we only had 49 students, 9-12. Last year, we were up to 94, and as of the time of this presentation, we have 108 students. So we've increased our enrollment about 40. Now, I know 94 and 108, that's not 40, but between getting freshmen and also getting new juniors, sophomores, and seniors, we had about 40 new enrollments. This was our proficiencies. So I know that this was the cause of our F letter grade. Right here, if you look, we have 24, 25, 25, 26, and our proficiencies. And all of that data is also going to be presented on a graph or on a table here in just a moment. But you can just see visually we have a significant increase in ELA, both in 9th and 10th grade, significant increase in algebra and geometry. And why we do not have a 24-25 line is because we did not have enough students testing in biology for those scores to count. I understand that the scales change based off of the areas where we test. So we knew that that didn't count against us, but you'll see we had about 82% of our students pass the biology atlas end of course exam. So this is all of our data kind of broken down in different ways. So those were our proficiencies in all of the tested areas as of the end of the school year. 85% passed biology, 62% passed the ELA 9, which was up by from 38% the previous year. Biology, which was more than the state pass rate of 38%. Biology being at 85% was more than the 43% of the state pass rate. ELA 10 was up to 68% compared to 42% our first year and compared to 37% at the state. Algebra up almost 3 times as high. Same thing with geometry, almost 3 times as high. I also have some improvement data compared to their winter interims and how they did. And then just our overall increase in performance percentage-wise from year 1. So from there, there's Appendix 4. Appendix 4 is our school improvement plan that I submitted. And there is information kind of in there that goes along with each of these slides. So we were given our deficiencies, and I went through A through K and addressed each deficiency and what the root cause was, what we did specifically to improve, and what we're going to be improving, and that's also included in specific pages of the school improvement plan. So root cause 1 identified to us was low student enrollment, or one root cause was low student enrollment, lack of prior testing data for students. We have many students who came from homeschool that did not have testing data, or came from out of state who moved to our school because of what we are, and we did not have prior testing data on them. So we have done multiple things to improve the enrollment, including full-scale marketing, printed materials, et cetera, to get out in the community and surrounding communities to help recruit more students. We've increased our transportation. We've obtained a school vehicle that will allow us to reach out to communities around us, such as Greenwood and Van Buren, and get students to our school that were not previously able to get there. And we've implemented 2 new diagnostic tests. The Atlas first interim is actually a very short window at the start of the school year, so we will be using that data. But we've also added Edmentum. Edmentum is a program that you can use for credit recovery, but they also have a standardization of what grade level is this kid testing in math. And we will actually be implementing that over the next 2 weeks to identify where our students are and make sure that they are getting into programs that they need to get into as far as our Tier 3 RTI and Tier 2 RTI. Root cause number 2 for our letter grade in 24-25 was me as the dean. I was performing a dual role as the science teacher and the dean. I am no longer in that dual role. I am able to do more observations, perform coaching cycles, and help with data analysis and coordination of all of our students. I will also be working in test training, Atlas trainings, and I'm working with the Cultivating Communities for Formative Assessment. That advanced learning, I'm going to call that CC-FAL for the rest of the time, so I don't have to say that every time. That is with Dr. Bashir's organization out of U of A, which the name is escaping me right now, I apologize. We will also be working with APSRC through their leadership program. With Gina Williams, me, and Ms. Lucero, our academic coordinator, will be going through that to better understand the test process and how to look for growth in the classroom and teacher growth, that is, and their improvement in their teaching skill to help reach our students. Root cause 3, we had a limited level of Tier 3 our first year. Because of the small enrollment and with my extra duties, we were not implementing a solid Tier 3. Since then, we have implemented that one-on-one tutoring program and Edmentum, as well as the Tier 2 supports being even more rigorous and better tracked. We have a tracking sheet that we use to make sure our students are attending their Tier 2 activities so that they're receiving the supports they need to continue to improve. All RTI is tied to either Atlas scores, Edmentum screenings, or overall teacher observations, so we are using data a lot more effectively than I feel we were that first year in order to drive not only instruction but supports for the students. So I get into our goals. So this year we have set 3 goals for ourselves as a school. Goal number 1 is tied to math. Our math scores were our lowest, and we wanted to make sure that that is our focus. So we want to increase the proficiency of geometry by 10% and proficiency of algebra by 10% this year. We are going to be using our interim data results to show these increases in performance. So using the Atlas data to determine who's going to go into Tier 2, who's going to be in Tier 3 immediately. We're also using LEA Insights, where they help us identify the lowest 25% and getting those students into systems that get them to fix their deficiencies as soon as possible, so that we're not waiting for half the school year to be over before we identify students. Our benchmark will be at the winter or the mid-year assessment for Atlas. We're going to be looking for an increase in percentage of students demonstrating an expected increase in proficiency by 5%. We understand that the Atlas is not the end-all be-all nor the best indicator of our students growing at those interims, but it is a data point that we can use. We'll also continue to use the Edmentum to see, are they growing on grade level. So if they are, let's say, 3rd grade level in math, it may not show on the Atlas, but it will show on the Edmentum that they went from 3rd grade level math to 5th or 6th grade level math. So we will be using both of those as indicators for us on measurable academic goals in mathematics. Goal number 2 is tied to growth. Arkansas has shifted its stance on growth. We are no longer a recovery state, we are an exceeding state. So 75% of the students will meet or exceed their growth scores in ELA. Unfortunately, we won't know those scores obviously until they come out the next year. But that is going to be a focus, is not letting students who are stalled in their growth sit there, but continue to look at their data, look at their classroom results, and pushing those students with extension activities and things that are going to help them continue to grow. The benchmark, again, will be those Atlas interims. We're going to look at our students to see who has low levels of growth. So what was their previous year's score? What are they scoring this year right now? Are they similar scores, or are they increasing in scores? For example, if you don't know, a kid can score somewhere between 1,000 and 1,180. If they're staying at 1,030 and they get 1,030 again, that student's not growing. We need to see growth in those kids. Measurable goal number 3 is an increase in the growth of all students who previously received a 3 or 4 on the Atlas. We noticed that many of our students who are achieving or are exceeding tend not to continue to hit those growth metrics. So we will be focusing on extensions for those kids and how we continue to challenge them and push them forward in their academics. So who are we identifying with these? The goal, we have 3 target groups. Target group number 1 is the lowest quartile. We know that not only does that Atlas assessment, their increase in growth give us more points, but we also know that those are the students who have the greatest levels of deficiencies that we need to get back on track. Students with IEPs and 504s, specifically because they were the ones who showed on our data the lowest level of growth. Not that they didn't grow, but they showed the lowest level of growth, so we will be targeting them. And students not showing growth based on their Atlas end of the year, last year. Specifically, we had a lot of students stall in ELA. So we're focusing a lot on Algebra 1. Algebra 1 is our lowest score. It's the lowest score across the state, geometry. And we'll get into what we're doing to help those students and help those teachers. So our evidence-based instruction actions. ICA will continue to implement sound Tier 1 instruction practices with observations and coaching cycles. The observations and coaching cycles will be we'll be using APSRC's help to help guide us through that with their leadership, but we'll also be using the state's new system. They've given some great things on the educator effectiveness side. We will continue to use the data to drive our Tier 2 and Tier 3 one-on-one at RTI. Tier 3 interventions will begin in September, so we're going to get students in their help as fast as possible once we have once we know the clear deficiencies and what we need to focus on with those students. We'll implement the beginning of the year diagnostics, and Ms. Lucero will continue to focus on special education and academic coordination so that those students are getting into the courses that they need to be getting into for those extra helps. Timeline, we will be placing these students within the first month. So we are wanting to be timely about this. Tier 2 and Tier 3 placement will occur within the first month of school as well. Tier 2 will happen weekly based upon students' individual results in classes. Observations will occur for the first 2 weeks, and then we will begin coaching cycles within that first month. So we want to get data on what pardon me, I'm a little nervous. We want to get data on how are our teachers teaching. Are they teaching effectively, or does it look ineffective? And then start coaching cycles with helping them understand, hey, this was a good, personal lesson, but how can we make this more advantageous to the academic growth? So focusing on that aspect of the test rubric that is more about how does the lesson help the students grow. I will be overseeing the documentation of all aspects of the plan. So my responsibilities will be monitoring all the required Tier 3 observations, coaching cycles, and continuing to help in all of those processes. Ms. Lucero will be assisting in observation and coaching cycles as well. Her background is in mathematics, so she will be taking on our new math teacher and helping continue to guide them. And President Dr. Russell will meet with us bi-weekly to get weekly reviews and documentation on what we've observed and how we are progressing forward, and also to discuss any changes that may need to be made in the plan. We always know that we need to modify and adjust what we're doing. Professional learning and coaching cycles, we're learning more about those processes and continue getting help. Again, we're working with CC Falls through Dr. Bashir's. Went to that first meeting yesterday. I will also oversee coaching to ensure professional development, so making sure all of our teachers are receiving the required professional development and extended. Do I need to stop?
So I gave you additional 25 minutes on top of the 20, so I'll give you 5 more minutes to wrap up. And if there's anything else you guys didn't cover, definitely when we start asking questions, you can circle back around to that.
Okay, I'll get through these last couple slides real quick. So we're going through coaching cycles, APSRC's Instructional Leadership Program, and Beginning Administrator Program for Ms. Lucero. We will continue to do progress monitoring through the test system to evaluate our teachers and make sure that they are being highly effective teachers. Continue our RTI, making sure students are attending RTI, have weekly RTI meetings with students and the academic teachers so that the teachers know the expectation and the students know the expectation. And all that data will be collected through Atlas and Edmonton, and all of that will be shared with the staff. We will collect evidence to determine if the plan is working. So if something's not working, we want to modify and fix that. That will be shared with Dr. Russell and with the school board. It will be collected through, again, Edmonton and those classroom tools and the Atlas program. All reports will be made monthly to the school board, to the president, and to DESE as needed, or however we can set that up to make sure that we're reporting to them on top of what's going on our website with school board meetings being posted, agendas being posted, etc. I'm going to skip that for now. So things that we're doing as far as PD to support ourselves and the staff. Again, the CC Fall, we're using APSRC's math training, so we're sending our math teacher to APSRC's geometry training this year. And then next year, the focus will be on the algebra because our algebra scores were a little bit better. We know geometry is the area that we need to really bring up. Me and Ms. Lucero are attending the Instructional Leadership Empowerment Program. We work with Arkansas Ideas, obviously, for a lot of our trainings. And then we work with Guy Finter on selected trainings where I feel we need to bring outside professional development that maybe APSRC is not working with at the time. They've been gracious enough to work heavily with us. So as far as everything in the deficiency plan, we feel that we have met what it was requested of us with our school improvement plan. We've met the recommendations that APSRC set before us, and we met what the performance deficiency was reported. And just to throw in a couple other things here, we have a set of events happening this year. These are also specifically the Bits of Broadway, that's going to be our big fundraiser program. But we have lots of events that the community is going to be getting involved with. And so overall, we feel that we have met all of the compliance needs for what the state has requested of us as a school. And we went through all of these different things to make sure we are in compliance with the state and what has been requested of us. Thank you.
So that concludes our presentation. At this time, we would welcome questions of the CAP panel, and just request that if we're going to be continued to require to monitor and progress check in with the charter office, that we have a clear understanding of what that looks like. Our opinion, at least at this point, is that there's no formal proceeding that's been advanced against ICA at this point, and there's been no notice of any formal proceedings or anything like that. And so if there's progress monitoring that needs to take place between ICA and the charter office moving forward, whether on an academic side or a financial side, that we just have a clear picture of what that looks like so that we can comply with those requirements. But we welcome questions at this time. If you have questions for specific individuals, just ask them and they can come up and answer them. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. I think we now have a presentation from our finance office, and so after we get that presentation and then ask questions of them, then we will then open questions up for the charter. So I would like to invite up Ms. Tina Coleman from ADE Finance. If you just state your name for the record, please.
Tina Coleman, Arkansas Department of Education. I am a physical support supervisor. All right, so what I'm going to do, I'm just going to read through the documents that were given to me, my review of them. Okay. First thing I wanted to note was that the NMTC closing forecast, the report shows that the charter schools enrollment at 250 for FY25, 359 students for FY26, and 432 for FY27. The FY26 third quarter ADM was 90. That major difference alters the total revenue for the report's operating cash flow projections. With the Uber report, and if you're not familiar with the Uber report, it's something that my unit uses routinely. It is the unrestricted budget expenditures and revenue report. The charter's FY26 year-to-date net legal balance is negative $122,538. The main cause of the negative and a cause for concern is that they have received 77% of their budgeted revenue. The charter has received less in donations, and local miscellaneous revenue than budgeted. So what that looks like in actual numbers, for FY26, they budgeted $1,263,522 in contribution and donations from private sources and miscellaneous revenue from local sources. Year-to-date, what was actually received, $790,541.49, creates a variance or a difference of $472,981.35. That difference overall year-to-date has their ending balance, their net legal balance at negative 7.84%. which is year-to-date negative $122,538.38 net legal balance. The board report, after reviewing the board report, the charter cannot close the year with negative fund balances. The negative balance in Fund 2 is what's causing the overall negative balance total for funds 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So it's just all carrying straight down. The Fund 2 balance, which is their operating fund, is at negative $102,755.97. That is creating a negative $35,964 balance on their board report. And that is through period 13, FY26. Appendix 2 of their packet, when I reviewed that, let me get to that page. I noted the appended projections look good because the actuals are less than the budgeted amounts presented, but that does not reflect the actual numbers in the Uber and the board report. On the Appendix 2, I questioned with line 19,200, the private contributions. Budget was 62,500, actual 15,404. With that difference, that makes me question the validity of the projected 275,000. Further down, charter facility funding, they are budgeting 52,861. I do not count that as an actual number because on the preliminary state aid notice, every charter is showing 0. So I personally do not count any numbers until they're printed and I can see them. Transfer from operating. They're projecting to transfer $60,000 from operating Fund 2 to Food and Service Fund 8. I noted that is normally not seen as a negative, that transfer, but in this situation, you can't transfer positive from a negative account. So budgeting to transfer 60,000 from an account that's in the negative, you can't make that transfer. So it's not gonna be accurate. And that is all I have.
Right. We'll wait a second, see if we have any questions from our panel members. So, are there any questions for ABE Finance?
I have so many questions, but I can't formulate them in my brain right now.
Okay.
If we need to, she can come back up.
Yes, you can. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right, thanks. Okay, so at this time, I would like to ask Ms. Rainey to come forward and let us know if there's any legal concerns that we need to be aware of before we begin our questions.
Hi, Julie Rainey, ADE Legal. We have no legal concerns.
Okay, thank you. Okay. So we will now begin questions of the charter. I will start with, well, Dr. Bacon said he's still trying to form his questions. So do you want to start? Okay, so Mr. Baldwin, if you will begin.
So thank you all for coming, and thank you for all the information. I was pleased to see the improvement in the student scores and in the proficiency of students. You know, in the end, that's what we're all about, is educating children the best way we can. And I know that everybody here wants to do that. I know that we have true hearts for that. When we started, we listened to the challenges maybe that have been faced by those in this room. Communication challenges, personality issues, those are serious issues. If we can't talk to each other and we don't get along with each other, it's hard to do the right thing. It's clear that there's broken trust, and I'm just going to summarize my thoughts from what I've heard so far. You know, you all need to fix this. I mean, we are all adults. We all want to do the right thing, and you all have to come together to fix this. The kids of Arkansas really deserve that, and I hope you can get there. There needs to be transparency between organizations. We need to work together to try to make this work. So, just some thoughts. I really focused a lot on the financial part. I think I'm pretty pleased with the academic part, and those on this up here will speak to that in a way better than I can. But let's start with the financial questions. And I don't know who wants to come up here for that. I've got several.
And just remind you that when you come to the microphone, please restate your name. I know it can get to be a bit redundant, but we need it for the record. Thank you.
Kathy Cardy, Volumetric.
So we heard some reports from the department about cash
Yep.
positions being
Yes, sir.
different than in the budgets. Do you know what your cash position is right now, as of today or yesterday?
Yes, at eFinance, we're still working in period 13 right now. I've got the latest report. Right now, the ending overall fund balance is $35,964 in the negative. We have till August 31st to get everything worked out in period 13, which we are diligently working on. There were some challenges this year in getting things caught up. I was brought on in December to help work through a lot of issues, and so we have every confidence that we're going to get that worked through. And we also have the liquidity to be able to provide for that $35,000 deficit that we have in that account.
Where does that liquidity come from?
CSA. We have funds in CSA that are used with the line of credit that can be moved over.
How much liquidity is there? And I know that's not really, they're not part of
Right.
what we do, but if they're going to be the source
Sure.
of strength for the school, we need to know how strong they are.
Yeah. At any given point, we've got, 100,000 easily right now that we can move over, with more coming in very soon.
Okay. So, I guess what I was expecting to get financially before I got the package from everybody was what I would call normal gap prepared financial information.
Okay.
So I was expecting a balance sheet,
Okay.
and I was expecting an income statement, which would show us the condition, both cash condition and the earnings condition of the school, which would be helpful to us. And then really I was thinking also we would get a cash flow report that shows the cash in and out, which the budget is kind of that, but not quite.
Right.
And then I was also hoping to get a cash flow projection, so you all would project through the end of this school year, so we make sure that we have cash, to make payroll every time that we need to make payroll, and other things. So I really would like to see a packet of information like that.
Absolutely.
The budget is good, but it's limited as far as what it shows.
Okay. We have balance sheet, income statement, cash flow projections, both for ICA and combined. All of those are requested monthly by the banks that are with the new market structure. We just, I think, felt like we were talking about ICA and talking about it in terms of e-finance and the different unrestricted and restricted funds that go along with e-finance. So that's kind of how we wanted to interpret that, but we absolutely have a balance sheet and an income statement for ICA according to generally accepted accounting principles.
That would help us.
Absolutely.
And I think one of the things I see a need for would be really total transparency financially between the school and the department. I mean, the department has a number that they show as a negative, and your negative number is different. But, those need to be the same. It's not hard to know how much cash you have or don't have. And both organizations need to have the same view of that.
I understand that.
So that would be something to provide, I think, that would help. In the end, I think, or maybe I just said in the beginning, our challenge is we don't have enough students. You can't run this school on 108 students, which that's what we have this year.
Yes, sir.
108. That's just not enough. When you all came to us a few years back, you asked for a cap of 500, and you thought you would get to that cap pretty quickly. And so all of that initial approval was based on number of students. So, when you do the budgets, it would be good to show on the budget the students that you have as your core assumption, because everything kind of flows from that. And I know you told us that, but last night when I was looking at this, I didn't know that. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Appendix 3, because that is the 100 student estimate, which that's really, we're closer to that than Appendix 2. And let me ask before I start this, do we, so we talked about the negative 30,000 in cash, or negative 122,000,
Right.
somewhere in that range. Do we have a list of unpaid vendors, people that have done work for us, that we're holding the invoices and not
No.
paying them because we don't have sufficient cash?
No,
I mean,
I'm not aware of those, no.
Okay, now that's an important question. Does anybody know the answer to that?
And we're talking about the end of the school year, correct? 6:30?
Right. So people that we just don't have the money to pay right now, so we're holding their invoices?
I'm Marcia Crowe, I'm the business manager, so I work on the daily side of the school. No, sir, everyone has been paid, all checks have been released, and there's nothing carrying
Okay.
over from 25,
Okay,
26.
so that's good.
Yes,
Yeah, thank you.
you're welcome.
Okay. So in walking through your Appendix 3 budget, and I guess I had some of the same questions that the department has.
Okay.
And what I would suggest when you do a budget like this, and you have, like private contributions, 275,000, when the previous year was 15,000, so that, that's a large increase. I would make a list of who those private contributions are coming from and have that as an attachment to the budget, so we can look at that. Is that list made up of firm commitments, or does that have
Yes.
what
It
I
is
would
firm
call blue
commitments.
sky in it also?
That's, as of the last time I checked, it's firm commitments.
Okay, so
Yes.
you could give us a list of who has committed.
Absolutely.
Do they have a timeline of commitment? Is it all this year, or is it some?
Yes, it's this year.
Okay.
Mills Bryant, attorney. Just to clarify on that, we'll have to get consent from donors to be disclosed in order to fulfill that obligation. But
Yes.
to those who can be disclosed, we can disclose.
Yeah,
them.
so I appreciate that, because I know donors sometimes don't want to, they want to do it anonymously. For us to give credence to the number, though,
Yeah.
we're gonna have to know who it is, because some donors are more capable than others. And if there's, unknown donors, I would just reduce that from your list, because who knows whether they will do it or not.
Precisely. We can disclose who we are able to disclose based on our confidentiality obligations. So we will try to comply with that in as much complexity as we
That
can.
would be helpful. I think it'd be helpful for you guys.
Absolutely.
If you could do that.
And I know the list, I just
Yeah.
didn't
Yeah,
give
you-
those
you
things
know.
out right now.
There were some other things that the department mentioned, down here, the transfer from operating. I think they were not sure that would be.
Right, and we'll need to take a look at that. I wasn't aware of
And
that
then the
issue.
miscellaneous revenue from local sources of $500,000. The same would be for that, to list out where that
Yes.
revenue is coming from, so we have
Mhm.
some.
And that
assurance.
is, again, that's primarily the fundraiser that's gonna happen in November, which is gonna probably net about 450,000. And then we also have the partnership with CSA that provides funds as needed.
Okay.
But absolutely, we'll put that out separately,
Okay.
yes.
That would be good.
Right.
When you bring the budget,
Sorry, I want to interject something really quick. A follow-up to Mr. Baldwin's pointing out the transfer of operating
Mhm.
and ADE finance, stating that was something that could not take place. And you just stated that you were not aware that was
Well,
an
that-
issue?
I
or
yeah,
do you
I
not where you
know
couldn't
that
do
that's
that, or
related
was-
to child services. I understand that that's related to nutrition. I'm just not sure on the budget, what was at issue there, but we'll look at that and work on it.
I guess so were you not aware that you could not do it, or you were not aware that was, the negative balance was an issue? Which were you not aware of?
I wasn't aware of this negative balance issue,
Okay.
but like I said, we'll look at it.
Okay, thank you.
it would be nice for the panel to have you all in the department agree on the numbers, because when you're in disagreement, it
Right.
causes us concern on which one's right, and maybe neither are right, but.
Yeah, and this budget, this column B, the actual numbers, those were given to y'all a while back. We're still, like I said, in E-finance, we're still in the process of
Yeah.
period 13 and working on that. So it's not that we're out of budget, but again, it's, or out of balance. We know what the balance is now, and that it doesn't quite agree with this, because this was given, made up weeks ago. But I will say that a lot of this has to do with, you had asked if we could do a balance sheet and an income statement according to GAAP. And so, and that's my wheelhouse. So E-finance is not as much my wheelhouse, but in GAAP, that wouldn't be there. That 58 $1,863 would not be an issue like it is that is showing up in e-finance. So that's why I have to look at it a little harder.
I just think it goes back to what I said in the beginning, we need to work together.
Absolutely.
We don't need to have competing financial numbers.
No,
for
and
us
we
to
are
try to
working
do.
with, people are there at the center helping us. There's people there right now, working through some of the Period 13 issues and so forth. And so we are definitely working with the state.
So going over to the lease agreement, because
Yes.
that has a financial consequence to it. It looks to me, in reading this, and I guess Hope Federal Credit Union, and this gets back into the New Markets Tax Credit. Are they the investor in this?
Again, Paul Parnell, Rose Law Firm. Hope Federal Credit Union was actually the source leverage loan lender. As the school was being built, they did it on a construction loan through Arvest, and then Hope came in, given their experience with charters, and packaged it out. So
So
they're
they're the lender for the building. They have the mortgage on the building.
They do not have a mortgage on the building. They are a source lender into the New Markets tax credit structure.
Okay. So, okay.
So what they do have what they have, CSA is the sponsor of the New Market tax credit structure. Hope sits on top of them. They have a loan agreement with CSA. It's not a mortgage on the building. What it is it's a loan that has a 7-year forbearance period in it, where they can't actually get down to the building. So they have hate to call anything a New Markets traditional, they have a traditional New Markets source leverage loan to CSA.
Okay. I know Bill Bynum, he's a friend, so I know Hope fairly well. I've worked with him over time. So in looking at the operating, the lease and operating agreement, it looks like, and let me just read this so we make sure we all understand it. It says here from September 1st, 2025 and terminating on August 31st, 26, forbearance period. Lessor agrees to forbear from collecting rent from operator provided that operator is not otherwise in default of the terms of the lease and this agreement and amendment. Commencing on September 1st, operator shall make payments of rent on the first business day of each month in the amount of $108,000. So, is that, I guess I've got a couple of questions, and we've signed this, and you all signed this, so you've agreed, I guess, that you're in default on the rent. You've seen this, I hope.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that came, ICA in their lease to CSA, they were not paying rent, and we were able to do a deferral, and
So
then,
this is rent that ICA owns CSA,
correct.
okay?
And then this year, we'll do another one and keep, as ICA, builds enrollment, the intention is to continue the deferrals.
So ICA is relying on the financial strength of CSA to basically keep the school going, or the deferral of rent
Correct.
to keep the school going. Okay, paragraph 2 here, it says operator did not make and is unable to make the required rent payments under the lease that were due on March 1st, 2025 and June 1st, 2025, with such missed payments totaling $648,500. So are you looking to the school to come up with that money to pay CSA? The rent that, and this may not be a question for you.
No, ultimately,
This may be,
ultimately the intention is that, yes, that lease to support the tax credit structure, we can't forgive it. It can't look like a grant. We have to add it on to the lease. And so the way it is intended to be structured is that rent, the deferred rent, comes in after the deferral period ends for the tax credit structure. And so at that point, that's when, if there's an obligation, it would be due in 2031.
yeah, so these are big numbers.
Correct.
And I think that they need to be included in the financial budgets as you expect payment. And if there's still a deferral out there, we need to understand what that is, because at some point in time, the school is going to be required to pay this, that's a question, right? I mean, the school's not gonna be able to walk away from this rent obligation, are they?
I'm not quite sure are you asking?
So we have a lease, and we're supposed to be paying rent, and we're not. I mean, at some point in time, that's gotta stop, and you gotta honor your obligation, right?
That's right. It is documented that way so that it is a legally binding obligation. The way this is intended to work is that when you get through the tax credit compliance period, you can restructure. And so the intent would be to restructure it at the end of that time period. But yes, you're absolutely correct that for now, it is a legally binding obligation, correct?
Okay. So I think it's reasonable to include some type of a cost of rent in a budget, even if it's being deferred because of some other deal. I mean, that's part of the operating cost of any organization. And if this was a third party, unrelated deal, the lender, the owner of the property would be evicting the school. And so, that's something that needs to get reflected in this. Thank you. So,
Could,
yes.
if I
Dr.
could
Moore has a follow-up.
follow up to that, so, and I'm not the financial person, so I really appreciate Mr. Baldwin asking these questions, but just for my clarity, so I understand what the word deferred means, but to his point, deferred doesn't mean forgiven. And so you're working on the assumption that there's intent that in the future that could be restructured, but there's no guarantee of that. So this is just increasingly adding debt over time that eventually could possibly go away, but is not guaranteed, and at some point could come due, almost like a balloon payment that a normal layperson would have on something.
That's correct. It
If you could
is.
restate your name and.
Oh, I apologize, not Paul Cornell, Rose Law Firm. That's correct. There is an intention. The way that intention is documented, there is at the end of the New Market Tax Credit Compliance Agreement, there is an agreement in place it's a put-call agreement. The investor offers a complete exit out of the transaction for $1,000. That's optional. In the history of the program, they've always exercised their $1,000 put. So you exit out of the transaction for $1,000, but they don't have to do it. And so you're correct. There's an intention there. It's consistent with the program that be exercised. The exercise price is $1,000, but it's merely that, an intention.
All right, thank you for your clarification.
So one more thing. So back here on the second page of the lease, there's reporting obligations that the school has committed to. It says during the term of the lease, operator agrees to additional lender reporting and compliance requirements on or before June 30 of each year, but no sooner than June 15th. Operator will submit to lessor and lender a semester-based enrollment plan for review and approval by the lender. In the event operator does not achieve 90% or more of its enrollment targets for 2 consecutive semesters, lender may pursue corrective action, and operator will agree to such plan as adopted by lender. So, have we done that this year, and are we in compliance with this? Have we achieved our 90% growth target that we gave to the lender, or have we fallen short of that?
Value Metric. We've complied with everything that Hope and Civic have asked of us as far as the financial requirements and the debt covenants and everything. We're still working with them. They've asked for more information, and we're clarifying that and asking for, again, final numbers and a combined cash flow statement for CSA and ICA. And so we're working through that. We'll have that to them on Monday. As far as your specific question about the enrollment falling below, is that what you asked?
Yeah.
I don't know.
They're allowing a slower growth.
Okay, we have been allowed. We've
Sorry.
talked to them.
I'm sorry. Dr. Russell, we'll have to swear you in if you want to give comments. Sorry. So first, before you give any comments, I need you to raise your right hand so you'll be sworn in. Do you swear the testimony you're about to give today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Rosalie Russell, ICA. The lending firms, Hope and Civic have given us an extended period of time for growth, knowing that starting a charter high school rather than starting at K-8 takes more time, so they've given us an extended period of time. They're working with us on it.
All right, so, in the end, what we're trying to do is get a handle around your cash flow. And I think the gap reports, balance sheet income statement, an actual cash flow statement, and then a cash flow projection going through the end of 26 and even into 27. And I would include, at least you all should talk about including the rent that you owe, because I think that's a valid component of a budget. And at least if you're not going to include it, footnote it so we can see how much is owed that you might end up having to pay at some point in time. The other thought I had is you obviously are having discussions with your lenders, which I have no doubt they're worried about this. I would be if I was the bank. And, I've seen things like this as a banker for 40 years ago. And, it's a process where there's a lot of things that happen that people overlook or ignore or hide or are just afraid of. And then all of a sudden you get to the end and you're kind of done. And when you run out of cash, you're done. And you guys right now sit with a negative cash. So it's a very concerning situation. I think we would like to see also some of the information between the banks and you all. And I don't know what triggers a default in a new markets tax credit. I know that happens, not very often, but sometimes it does. It's probably more about non-service to the low and moderate income group that you're serving, but still, we need to have that information to really understand. And that's all we're trying to do is understand, and we're actually trying to help. I mean, this may not sound like help, but you've got to have it all laid out. You've got to understand it in order to fix it. And you're doing that with your academics, but you've got to do it with your finances too. And my fear is that you run out of money before you can hit that. So I'm sorry that was too long.
No.
And I'm finished.
Okay. Ms. Newton. Ms. Newton, do you have questions?
No, I think, just want to compliment Board Member Baldwin for summing up all the sentiments I had that I couldn't explain financially. I just am concerned again that we don't get to an impasse between the school and the department where we can't move forward and make sure that we address the issues.
Dr. Moore?
Thank you. Congrats on your improvement in academics. That's very notable, and I know that your faculty and staff are working really hard to have achieved that. I do have a few questions. Can someone speak to the ACT testing and how few students, what a small percentage took the ACT?
Michael Johnson, ICA. Yeah, so we give the ACT to all of our juniors and the ACT work keys. The ACT results last year, we had I don't know the exact number. I apologize. I wasn't prepared for the ACT question. We were slightly above the state average of I think we had like a 20.1 was our average ACT. And I want to say it was about 40% received at 19 or higher. That's their overall score on the ACT. We had some pretty high achieving students on the ACT.
Okay, and I may be looking at the wrong data. Something I looked at cited that only 10% of students took the ACT.
That would be, that would not be correct. All of our juniors that attend our school last year took the ACT.
Okay.
And the 24-25 school year, all of our students also took the ACT that year.
Okay.
So I don't know if that just wasn't reported in the correct system or something, but no, all of them.
Okay, I'll check. It could have been a typo on something.
Okay.
But,
and if I need to send you like the student list and everything, I can put that together for you and show you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I did want this, you can go ahead and say it, but I have a comment before I have a question.
Yes.
So it seemed to be a lot of questions at the beginning with the initial presenter about almost like unfair treatment, picking on y'all, like why were you asked to do all these things? When you're an F school, that is common. All F schools were asked for the same progress monitoring. It's ongoing. That's our responsibility. So, it wasn't something that was unique to ICA. It wasn't like, oh, we're going to only ask ICA to provide additional information or let us have visits. That was asked of all F schools. So just to be clear on that, that wasn't something unique to ICA. So just wanted to point that out. And then a question, can you speak to special education students? Because on the chart that I was looking at, I didn't see that anyone was identified as special education, yet there were some with 504s and IEPs were mentioned.
So again, being a new school, we were still trying to maybe figure some things out in the e-school system on that end. I know we have everybody coded with an IEP or 504 in our system correctly, so I don't know if there was a specific location where that data was pulled from that it was not aggregated properly. But all of our students that have an IEP or 504 have it documented. The teachers have the papers and everything, and we're tracking those students as requested. So it may have been just a misplacement of data as same thing with the ACT. And I know that when y'all are pulling those reports, we are trying to work with the state as best as possible on everything, but sometimes it's, hey, we get told, hey, fix it, and we ask where to go get things, and sometimes we're not getting great answers back. So I'm not putting blame on anybody other than myself in that now that we know this is an issue, we want to get this figured out. So definitely wanted that reported correct because Ms. Lucero, our special education director, I mean, I don't know exactly how many IEPs and 504s we had this year, but it's something like 30% of our population. And if you logged into our eSchool, you'd see every kid has the correct marks on medical needs and things like that. So we're getting that documented on the eSchool side. Maybe there's a misconnection between what's occurring on the eSchool side and what's occurring on the state side.
Okay, because the data that I was seeing showed students with 504 plans, but didn't show any designated population for students with disabilities, so.
Okay.
And just before we move to that, Ms. Stewart has a follow-up that she'd
So,
like to ask. on
Yes,
that.
Yes.
along those lines,
Yes, ma'am.
we would like to see those numbers,
Okay.
you know, from staff, and then really want to hear a little bit about what those supports are too. So we don't have to get to that now, but we do need those numbers.
Okay.
And that will clear, because I know I asked the charter office, maybe was the N size too small, why we didn't see the data, but from what you're sharing now, it seems that was not the case,
Yeah,
potentially that the N size
maybe
was
the
not below
maybe
the threshold.
Maybe the very first year, because we were pretty low numbers on that first year that the in-data might have been there. But I know for now, we have plenty of data that the in-data should be populating. Yeah.
Let's take your name.
Kelly Lucero, Academic Coordinator in Special Education. In the first year, we had a different person doing special education, and I went on to an alternative licensure plan to do special education. So that first year, our special education students were not entered into the SMMS, and we did not know that until the next year when I went through SPED monitoring. And it has now all been updated. I believe we had 5 or 6 SPED students the first year out of our 49. Last year, we had 13 with IEPs, and this year, we just got 2 more. I believe we're at 17 with IEPs, and probably another 17 with 504s. So we have over a third of our population in special services this year, but they all should be in the system this year documented and will be followed up on.
Thank you for that clarity, and thank you for going on to get your special ed licensure.
Thank you. I'm now fully licensed.
Awesome. Another question I have, during that first year, I'm seeing that 35% withdrew, 17 of the 49 students. Why did those students withdraw? Do you have any, and I did see data on, where they went, whether they went to homeschool or to another district. Were there reasons given or rationale given as to why they withdrew?
Michael Johnson, ICA. I think a lot of it was we were a new school and then we were trying to figure things out, and there was uncertainty just within the parents, and specifically within the homeschool parents. Many of them were trying to get their kids into a school system, 9-12, get them the education, and we had the original dean of the school leave the school in October. And I think that maybe gave some sense of instability. And many of the kids couldn't cope with being in a public setting like that. Most of the homeschool kids that we get are coming to us with social emotional issues, and they're getting in the school setting and they're in a room with 20 kids for the first time ever, and it's causing them to have to figure out how to be socially emotional mature, and they're not there. So a lot of our issues with student enrollment as far as keeping those kids that first year, it was tied to just a lack of social and emotional connection for those kids with the school.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And one last question, if I can do one more. And it's really not addressed much or part of your reporting, so you may not be prepared to answer this, but any insight you can give me, just thinking about these students, and I was happy to hear about the new CT pathways, the H2
Yes, ma'am.
pathways, to prepare them for the future. But can you speak to concurrent enrollment or dual enrollment with these students? Because many of these students, to have a livable wage career, are really going to need to pursue post-secondary education in their field. So could you speak to those opportunities?
Right. Yeah, I don't have the numbers on enrollment, but yes, we offer our dual enrollment with UAFS there in Fort Smith. So we have multiple kids taking concurrent classes, multiple kids taking multiple concurrent classes as well. We offer all of the AP opportunities, so advanced placement classes, either through our direct teaching or through Virtual Arkansas. And we actually have a few students who are not dual enrolled like concurrent credit, but who are actually going to the university to take classes because they are beyond the skill set of what we offer as a tradition or as a high school. And as far as preparing our students for post-graduation, our counselor meets with every student, makes their full graduation plan. I know that Ms. Lucero, with all of our special education students, also makes those plans and works through what is the goal post-high school graduation, what are you going to go do. Last year, we had 17 graduate, and I think 16 of the 17 are currently in college. So we are tracking where they're going to universities as well to make sure that they are able to achieve their goals.
Okay, awesome, thank you so much. Well, and with the post-secondary credit, I know there's many opportunities for that diplomas of merit distinction.
Yes, ma'am.
But even just getting the certificate of general studies opens up dollars with the governor's scholarship that just would make a profound impact on student opportunities after
Yes,
graduation.
ma'am. Yeah, and that's something that me and our counselor and Ms. Lucero and even Ms. DeWitt, our registrar, are working very heavily in, is making sure that those kids are in classes that are preparing them for that post-secondary life.
Thank you so much, appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Dr. Bacon?
Thank you. Again, as was noted earlier, I did have a chance to come and visit. I think it was in March. Very impressive facility, impressive staff, impressive work going on with the students. So I really commend you all for the work that you're doing in that regard. Academically, obviously science, ELA, we've hit on some things that are really working. I know you quickly went through some slides, but so just sort of for my benefit from the academic side, since that's really why you were here in the first place, because of the F letter grade.
Yes,
What's working, and how are you going to ensure that you will sustain that in light of what sounds like some pretty pressing financial concerns? How are you going to make sure that those improvements in those areas continue and sort of expound on what's working?
Yeah, I will say that, first of all, being able to really get into the data and use that data to drive not only instruction, but the tier 1 and tier 2 interventions has been the biggest driver that's helped us, along with the tier 3 tutoring that we're doing with 3 in-person tutors that have 2 of those, or 3 of the, all of those tutors are actually teachers with our school as well, so they know these students and they are working with data that they have themselves. So identifying key areas of deficiency and expounding on the testing that we're doing at the beginning of the year with Edmentum, so figuring out what deficiencies our kids truly have. And we're also working with all of the teachers when they submit lesson plans there to submit extensions to help focus on kids who are already exceeding or achieving, and how we can continue to press them to continue to keep improving those growth scores. If you look at a kid who's got a 1090 on the Atlas test, that's really, really high. It's almost tops out the graph. It's really hard to get that kid to grow. So what can we put in a lesson or at the end of a lesson to keep that kid challenged with the content and not just sitting back doing nothing? And I think we went to the ADE Summit this summer and attended quite a few sessions, and that was one of those things that was really talked about a lot, was Arkansas becoming not just a recovery state, a credit recovery state, but really being an excelling state. And that's kind of been what we've been leaning into, is how do we get the staff aligned to what we want to achieve, and what are we doing in the classroom? So starting those observations this next week, getting the data for the teachers and saying, hey, is this lesson fun, or is this lesson actually getting the students engaged with the content and learning? So that is something that I think me and Ms. Lucero are putting the challenge on ourselves this year, is not to let lessons that disguise themselves as being really learning, but they're just fun, and focusing on lessons that are going to keep that tier 1 instruction at the highest level possible.
So moving then over to math, and you did have some improvements in math.
Yes.
And I would say one of the things that you all are struggling from, you're only 9 through 12. High
Yes.
school, people would ask me all the time, you'd be better off with the 7th and 8th grade feeding you to 9th grade so that they're
Right.
not just dropping an algebra 1 or a geometry test the day the year they walk in the door. And so I know that's a struggle. I mean, from an academic side, because they've had years when they walk in your door for those end of course math tests. But I know Ms. Lucero was your math teacher, and she's
Yes.
transitioning to this academic coordinator position. You've hired a new math teacher, it sounds like.
Yes.
Sort of give us some confidence that that math piece is going to at least sustain, if not improve. Tell me about the new math teacher. Tell me about how Ms. Lucero, and maybe she can speak, how her new role supporting, coaching, coordinating
Right.
will work.
So I'll give my 2 cents, and then I'll let Ms. Sarah give hers. So for me, we didn't just hire a random person. We went out there and really tried to find somebody that fit us. Unfortunately, we were not able to find somebody with years of experience in math teaching, but the gentleman that we have hired was a former band director who became an engineer. Whenever he applied with us, his praxis scores were well above the state minimum requirement to pass the praxis. And just discussing math with him in his interview, the gentleman knew his math. On top of that, Ms. Lucero had spent a fair amount of the summer working with him to prepare him beginning of the year lessons, pacing guides, things like that. So he has everything he would need to succeed. And then this summer at the AD Summit, whenever we met with some members of APSRC, we realized that APSRC offers a 5-day intensive throughout the year with geometry and algebra. Geometry being our focus of it being our lowest pass rate, but also him being a first-year teacher, we're getting him in those trainings where he's going to learn what growth there were. We had some raving, what's the right thing I'm trying to say here? There was a teacher who went through the same program with APSRC who had not had students achieve level 4 before, and had not had great success, who had about a 70% pass rate, if I remember right, this last year in geometry, just by attending those things and learning from him. So we know we've got him set up with a great mentor who will be helping him, who saw that growth herself, but also with APSRC's program to help him continue to understand what is needing to be taught, what are the core things that need to be there. And Ms. Lucero and him, if they don't meet daily, it's close to. So that's my 2 cents on it. I'll let Ms. Lucero step up.
And sort of as you come up, Ms. Lucero, maybe because it's not just math, but just sort of talk about how you see your role, not only supporting this new teacher who clearly has math content knowledge, but is going to need some pedagogy, but your other teachers to sustain some of that performance that you all saw last year.
Sure. Kelly Lucero, academic coordinator. My new role is that I've always done the academic coordinator and the special ed, but I am out of the classroom now, so I can spend more time. Michael and I will be doing some coaching cycles, the pre-observation, the observation, and the post-observation cycles with the tests, and getting in there. We have plans to go weekly with all of the core teachers to do those observations and enter those coaching cycles. And I will be working extensively with Mr. Morris, our new math teacher, who does have quite a bit of math knowledge, but like you said, he does need a little on the pedagogy. He's not really a new teacher, he's just new to the math teaching. He does have experience teaching, he's not brand new to children, to the classroom. As far as the math, more on the math curriculum, we are integrating the illustrative math with the high quality instructional materials, illustrative math, and supplementing with Delta Math and the Atlas portal. We have so many rich activities for the kids to do, and working with the tier 3 instruction with we have kids coming in from homeschool situations, especially in math, that don't know their times tables. And like you said, if we could have a 7th and 8th grade feeder program, it would be so much easier to get them, but we do have to drop them right into Algebra 1, and they can't do 5 times 6. So I'm going to be working with him on a daily basis during his instructional planning period on the curriculum, on what these kids need, and then we'll start the intensive tier 3 tutoring with the ones that need it.
Awesome. And I would just say for both of you, just keep in mind the thing is the thing, the academics, getting out of this F status, continuing the progress, student achievement, because you're gonna have a million things that are gonna hit you that somebody's gonna need you to do that's gonna take you away from those bi-weekly meetings or the weekly observations or please sustain that, because that's what's the main thing here.
We are gonna have a dedicated calendar to that. I'll let Michael speak to that soon.
Michael Johnson, ICA. Yeah, I want to add into that's part of the reason we went with the CC Fall program. A, we were invited by Dr. Bashirs, but B, that is a program that is their goal, is not just looking at formative assessment, but looking at its application and looking at our teachers being thoughtful with their lesson plans, thoughtful with their progress. And so thankfully we have them to also help us stay accountable. Like you said, calendar, and then the leadership program through APSRC, working with Gina Williams. We work pretty closely with her, and thankfully she's been able to help us realize where we need to fix things, what needs worked on. So we have a lot of supports behind us too, to hopefully help us keep us on track. Because you're right, you know, I could walk in that building, have all these plans, and then a kid get sick, and you know, a fire alarm go off. So yes, we understand, and we're do everything in our capacity to continue having high-level Tier 1 instruction first and foremost.
Awesome. Well, you've got the right people behind you for instruction, I can tell you
I
that.
think so. I agree.
Lean into that, and it sounds like you all are already on the right track with that. I'm not sure who this would be for, but I'm kind of moving back over to the finance side. You talked about new market tax credits. When I was at Easton, we did new market tax credits for buildings. You've taken me into a deep hole of PTSD that I probably didn't need to go through. But I think I understand the situation, but you said something earlier, and Mr. Baldwin hit on it. Looking at this lease, it reads in the lease that you would pay $108,083.33 a month starting in September. That's over $1 million that would have been due and payable during FY27. Did I hear you say that that's going to be passed forward the same way that the FY26 amount of whatever it was, 670, 685, 648.5? Is that the plan? Because I didn't see that $1 million in the budget.
Paul Parnell, Rose Firm, Law Firm again. That is the plan. It has to be documented. The document that Mr. Baldwin has, the most current, it does need to be documented, but yes, that is the plan.
And so sort of where we are right now because of enrollment at 108 instead of the 300 and 400 numbers, this is going to be perhaps the pattern over the next few years, that the lease will be written, but we probably won't be in a position to make those payments, so we're just going to keep pushing it. Is that what I'm understanding?
That's correct. You know, we are going to have some runway to get to the position where that lease can be serviced, and so the intention is to continue doing exactly that.
And from my remembrance of new markets, and I know what you were talking about at 7 years, there are some forgivenesses, and the only thing that makes me nervous about that is it's not certain. I think Mr. Baldwin was saying, you know, putting things in writing, being able to show now we're going to be talking about 1.7 million of basically owed debt for leases that should be on the books and should be discussed, but perhaps won't actually come to fruition as a payment that has to be made at some future date. I just think from this perspective, for those of us that are out of the new market game and out of that piece, it just sort of would help to make more sense for me of seeing it somewhere. We acknowledge it, but this is our plan, and it's not going to be something that, you know, slams you in the face, and 2 years from now you're going to have like $4 million and someone's going to say, start paying us today, or we're going to, you know, call the loan.
That's right, and it's a fair point, because in 2031, after the 7-year, after the compliance period, as you've experienced through here, that's when that's when you have to address it. And so you're right that that is something we do need to document.
And this wouldn't be for you, it may be for the finance person, or even for Destiny Finance. Just, I think as was discussed, what is the actual cash position today? And I know there's still time to do some reconciling of things from FY26. The books aren't closed, but you know, you hear a number of 122 or something, I think I heard, which was perhaps unrestricted in the Uber report, or is that the full? Sorry, I'm sorry. We're just having a conversation. I'm breaking the rules.
Way to go. Don't mind us. We have a sidebar.
sorry, Tina Coleman, Fiscal Services Supervisor. From DESI's standpoint and finance's standpoint, they are operating in a negative, which is an indicator of physical distress. If it were a school district, you can't operate in negative. That is their net legal. Their overall fund balance on their board report is a negative $35,000. That being said, those numbers, again, are, as of right now, that versus their budget, I'm just not comfortable saying anything because of the lease. Pretty much everything that you mentioned were the questions that I had with their budget. So when they submit their budget for me to approve and to look at, I'm operating on what they have, what they've
Gotcha.
given me. And
Okay, but so it's a negative 35,000.
overall, but the net
Overall.
legal cash is negative 122.
Okay. And you all, now I'm gonna go back over here. And you all have a plan to bring that out of the negative 35 to positive, just that piece, and then there's a whole other 122 piece,
Right,
but I'm
we
just,
have the, yes, we have the
restate
cash
your
flow. Kathy Carty, Volumetric, sorry. We have the cash flow to do that. We're waiting, we're right in the middle of period 13 adjustments, and we've got the state, working with us and helping us on some issues that we had. You have to understand, this being so complex, and e-finance not being necessarily the vehicle that allows us to do a lot of these things in it, caused, there to be, where do we put this in e-finance? Because I know where to put it on a balance sheet and an income statement according to GAAP, but where do we put this in e-finance? So that's been our biggest hurdle, is trying to work in the confines of e-finance and get those numbers in there correctly. So yes, I'm not going to say that 35,000 will be the number tomorrow. I mean, we're actively working on that. But whatever number we land on, we do have the cash flow to bring that into the positive. I think she said something else. And also, as far as the debt, my understanding is, e-finance is now, it's cash basis. So if we're not making payments, and we haven't made rent payments, there's not going to be anywhere to put that in e-finance. And if it is deferred, then we're not making the payment through the end of this next year. So
what I was thinking, if you signed a lease agreement, you really have the obligation to make the payment, even if you're not making it. So I think GAAP would say you record that as an expense, and then you set up a deferred liability on your balance sheet to record that lease, obligation that you have, even though you're not making the payments.
I have a question.
Ms. Newton?
I don't, you say over and over, where do we put this? And I think that's the question for me as a panel member. Where do we put it in the whole process of evaluating the things that have been given to us at this point? I guess I don't see it any different from paying your day-to-day expenses in the whole scheme of things, with the rent being that it's not, okay, well, we'll work that out later. But I think it speaks to the financial stability or the obligation or the just expectation that it's not a good business practice. So I don't know how we extrapolate that in terms of evaluating other entities that have not paid their food budget. So how does it speak, and this is a rhetorical question, how does it speak to the overall operation of the charter that we have an outstanding, as important as education is, and a place to educate is just as important from what I understand. So the business practice of it all. And and I'm not certain where Mr. Baldwin is, but what does it speak to in terms of the stability or responsibility or any other ability of the organization as a whole? If we take it, can we remove that from and say education is a key? Or do we look at it in terms of total operation? So that's something that's recurring to me. If I were holding that lease, that could disrupt, possibly, I don't know about the new market tax credit, it could disrupt or, just a place to have a facility, just to have access to a facility, I don't know.
Is that a question you want to ask of the charter or
I think
of
it's
the-
something that the charter as well as the department could speak to. Cause I think on both sides of it, where does it fit? And how weighty is it? And how much of a deal breaker or maker? We get all the things, we get the test scores up, we get the math scores include, and how to address that. But I think if we leave here today without looking at that being a major, I've heard them talk about fundraising and different things, but that's critical as Entergy, if that's your provider, being there.
Dr. Bacon, does that address another question on your list? Do you want us to address that now, or do you want us to come back to
Go
it?
forward with what you're doing. I think my questions are done. So
Okay,
if you
no,
wanna
I
move
just didn't
forward
want,
with
if that followed up
Mhm.
another
No,
question you
that's
had.
great. No.
So if we could, like, have that on the table for a question we could have during our discussion period?
Okay.
And just if the charter office could be thinking about response to that as well.
It just seemed to be a segue into what we had just spoken about. And it's a recurring theme. Once we started, once Mr. Baldwin read the lease and brought that to, made it clear what was going on, it's, to me, yeah, but I thank you, we will do
Okay.
that later.
So, it sounds like that if we could get some additional guidance from the charter office when we come to our discussion section on how does that impact, any further conversations as we make our recommendations to the state board. Okay, thank you. Dr. Bacon, do you have additional questions? Okay. Ms. Stewart?
So just like my colleagues have said, commend you on all the academic performance and all of that. Great job. I did just have a couple of quick questions. First off, regarding enrollment, if somebody can speak to that. I know that Mr. Baldwin mentioned it at the top of this discussion, especially as it's tied to finance. So what are some of the things you mentioned just briefly? You had some marketing going on around increasing enrollment, but what are your key priorities, and clarify for us or talk to us a little bit about what you're doing to really drive enrollment.
Michael Johnson, ICA. I know our big thing has been getting out in the community and getting social media marketing and things like that driven. I'm not the marketing person, so I'm not the one that could answer this the best. She's not here. But getting involved in more community events, getting involved in more aspects of the community so that they know we're there. I know that has been one of our major dilemmas is even though we're going into our third year, I could go on to a farmer's market and be advertising. There are people who still don't know we exist, even within our community. So I think it's breaking down that barrier of, hey, there's just Northside, Southside, Van Buren, and Greenwood in the area, and getting into those fields. And then also getting our shows and our activities out there in the community more, which is why we have as many community events as we do, so to show that we're a viable option as an art school. Many of the districts are well established, as we know, in the River Valley area. So showing that we are just as competitive and worth taking the risk on sending their kids to us versus, a Northside, a Southside, or any other school in the area. And so that's been our big push is the community involvement and community interaction, as well as developing a better social media presence.
Yeah, well, and I appreciate that. I know that, the grassroots efforts are super important, especially from something community-based.
Right.
Thinking about that, do you have specifics? Dr. Bacon mentioned pipeline, 7th and 8th grade. Do you have specific partnerships or thoughts on that? That you can kind of tap into as your pipeline, since you don't have that currently?
Yes, ma'am. I know that there have been many discussions, especially within the past couple of board meetings, about the idea of potentially opening a middle school and expanding the charter down to get a pipeline more into the school, especially with the increase in the fact that Fort Smith Public Schools themselves is also opening a new charter, trying to open up those grades earlier so that we can get kids who, while they're transitioning from elementary to middle school, to view us as an option as well. So that has been discussed. No, obviously we've not gone any farther on that. That's really, I know what the big conversation has been. I can't think of anything else right now. Is there anything else to
I would just say, I would encourage those community partnerships for
Yeah,
sure.
yes.
Just from an awareness perspective, and that could certainly help drive enrollment.
Yeah,
So,
we've gotten heavily involved with the Chamber of Commerce, and they're advertising for us too, local newspapers, things like that. So definitely getting our name out there in a bigger, better fashion than what it currently is.
yeah, those are great resources, and it, that will hopefully help, this financial piece of
Yes.
things. So definitely encourage you to do that. I do want to kind of circle back on the special education piece, and commend you, as I'm a former special education teacher, so congratulations on your licensure. Really great job getting that done. But thinking through the student support services, talk to us a little bit about what that looks like, especially for your IEP students. And then kind of on part B of that would be what supportive services are you contracting with? Kind of what do those partnerships look like?
Sure. I'm Kelly Lucero, Academic Coordinator in SPED. As far as our outside therapy services, we have speech services and occupational therapy services that we're contracted with through a local person or a local company called Ray of Sunshine Pediatric Therapies. They actually send a live person to our school, which we were doing a third-party virtual therapies with the students, and they did not engage well with, trying to do speech therapy through a Zoom, trying to do occupational therapy where they need to watch them writing through a Chromebook camera just didn't work. So we do have a local provider that we worked with all last year that came on site and worked with the children. So we have them coming in. We haven't set up our schedule yet for this year because we just started, but they came last year on Fridays and worked with our children in person. As far as our special education population that we have at our school right now, most all of those are indirect or inclusion. We don't have really any that have come to us with a severe or a need for co-taught services, but I am available now outside of the classroom to do some of those pullouts or the inclusion and push in as I'm needed.
Okay, and I'm thrilled to hear that you've got some on-site supportive services. That's terrific. And I really would encourage you. I know that we've, everybody has talked about this, but in the end, everybody here is, should be and is, I truly believe, just for the kids, right? So this is all about increasing student outcomes. This is improving student outcomes and futures for Arkansas kids. So having, I know y'all are working diligently with APSRC, hats off to that. That is a huge resource. I would also encourage you to work with the department. The special education department here with ADE is fantastic. So they can provide those supports. They can help you with the numbers. I know there was a question with numbers and gathering information. That's what they're there for. So, really work on those relationships because, I think Mr. Baldwin started us out with that we are all professionals and our goal, is about the kids. So I would encourage you to really access all of the supports that are out there because everybody wants what's best for kids.
Yes. I have worked extensively with Ms. Dilla and Yvonne here at the Department of Ed because I, as a first year or in our second year of our charter, we went through special education monitoring, which was quite intensive. They came to our site, they monitored our files, and we corrected everything that we were able to, and then we were on a corrective action plan for an evaluation that ran over due to a student going out of town for a holiday, so we didn't meet the deadline for one evaluation. But we have since cleared up all that, and very wonderful people to work with, very helpful. Anytime I need help, if I call Ms. Dilla, if I call Yvonne at DESE or Sandra with APSRC, I have had nothing but wonderful experiences with all of them.
Excellent. Well, you are getting all the right resources. So I appreciate hearing that. Were you wanting to?
Michael Johnson, I see. I wanted to add, every time I've contacted the state and I've known what question to ask, I've gotten answers. It's more being an administrator and stuff. If things have gone wrong, it's because I haven't known what question to ask. But as soon as I get them, especially Dr. McCain, I've worked with her a lot, especially with our accountability and making sure we're in compliance with everything. And every time I've gone to her, her or somebody in that office, that accountability office, has been like, no, this is what you need to do. So it's a systems thing. It's not a lack of willingness to reach out. Because the first thing I do if I don't know the answer and somebody in that building doesn't know the answer It's called the state. So I feel like we have a really good relationship with the state as far as when we need help, we reach out.
Good.
And they get back with us. And if they don't know the answer, they're pretty good about finding somebody who does know the
Good.
answer. So.
Excellent. Well, that's excellent to hear. And then I did want to circle back, this will be the last question, on the finance piece. I know it was mentioned, and I think we talked about it super briefly, but the private contributions, and it was mentioned that there were grants as well, and those have not been received yet. Is that how we're to understand this? They have just been pledged, basically.
Kathy Carty, Volumetric, yes, that's correct. Not for this current year. We've had grants in the past, obviously, but we're working on the grant writing process and getting those grants for this year.
Okay, because it is a big jump from, your 15,404 in 25-26 to 275,000 for 26-27. So, oops, questions are over. But with that, that's a big jump, and so I was just trying to wrap my head around the commitment versus the actual money in the bank.
Yeah, the money's not
kind
in
of
the
thing.
bank.
And I think
but
that Mr. Baldwin, that was one of the questions of this list of
Sure.
donors,
Absolutely.
this list of grantors
Mhm.
would be important for that because,
Yeah.
from a vetting perspective.
Yeah, it's not I want to make clear, it isn't a wish list, it is that we've contacted people. It's, as with anything, when you start out, you have to develop the relationships, you have to develop partners, that want to come along with your school, and as more people find out about ICA and they want to be a part of it, then it's easier to raise money. And a lot of our money does come because of our lower enrollment. Our numbers for this year were based on last year's, third quarter average, which was 90 students. And so we're constricted in that regard. And so a lot of our money does have to come from grants, private donations, private citizens, corporations, and then this very large fundraiser that we have every year.
So, well, thank you for that. And just finally, I just have to say again, I hope everyone knows that we are all here to help. This is a team effort, and
Sure.
frankly, we're all on the same team. So, and our team is the kids of Arkansas. So, if we can just keep that top of mind and really work hard to work together and understand that we are here to help.
Absolutely.
Thank you. That's all I have.
So again, thank you for your presentation and all the information you guys have prepared today to answer questions of the charter office, and then also panel members know they had follow-up as well. And yes, I did have an opportunity to visit the campus and enjoy meeting with staff, chatting with some students as well, and seeing what was being offered there, and have been on some correspondence with some of my colleagues in CTE, and know you guys are working to develop those pathways, which I think will be another great asset for students that are moving through that space, to know how they can broaden their experience and opportunities for them in their creative arts avenue. We have had numerous conversations and numerous questions about finances, so I won't go as deep as everyone else, but I do just have a few things I just need to clarify for myself. And I guess in referencing back to, we're in the clean-up period of trying to make everything balance. So I guess, can you just remind me again of when is that drop dead, when that needs to take place, so that we can see, or try to see, some alignment in what the numbers we have now?
Marsha Crowe, ICA Business Manager. I'm constantly in contact with Robin Keene, and my director, actually, I guess, would be the person that's assigned through me through eFinance and AppScan. And we are currently working on period 13 and cycle 9 to get all of that corrected and fixed. My knowledge is we have till August the 31st is at the last when it can be finalized.
So is that the last Monday of the month?
It's the last Monday of the month.
So I guess my next question, and I don't know if it's for you or
Okay.
for your other finance member, excuse me. So it seems like that there were, you know, I guess, not awareness of some of the gaps, and one was brought forward today. You know, there's the one category where you can't, you know, reasonably move money from a negative line item to a positive line item. I guess I'm just trying to get my understanding, or how are those pieces missed?
When I ran all my reports and my general ledger audit trails and my board reports, I went with my e-finance lady and we went through it all. She instructed me on how to transfer from the foundation funding into the matrix to get those to work, and that was something that, it was a journal entry that we initiated. In all of my journal entries that I do, anything in e-finance, with me being so new, they're approved through e-finance before they can even be posted into e-finance. So as directed by them on how to create the journal entry and how they want things to look on the board report and create those entries for negative balances and clear those, all of that is approved and gone through e-finance with their team.
Well, I guess I'm referencing back to the transfer from operating. There's a negative in that
Mhm.
line, and as stated by one of your team members, they just were not aware that that negative balance was there.
Well, I think you're talking specifically about the child nutrition.
It's the
It's
transfer from
zero,
operating.
but it was in the negative. And on the board report and in our system that we go through with the gap accounting, we have salaries and benefits. They're all under one category. In finance on the board report, any type of salary or benefits that our kitchen staff and our nutrition directors have, that is all put down under child nutrition. So where we have salaries and benefits, it encompasses all departments. On the e-finance side is where it splits that out. So that can look, the child nutrition budget and the expenses look a little skewed until the matrix is pulled in and those are adjusted, the salaries and stuff.
Okay. And I don't know if this next question is for you or for ADE
Okay.
Finance.
Mhm.
And I was just trying to kind of get clear. So the budget that we're looking at, is that based on your actual enrollment or what you anticipate that you'll have enrolled?
On the budgets that were involved in the presentation,
Mm-hmm.
those were initiated before school started. So my knowledge is the 110 was what we were looking at, and then, or 125, and then the contingency was the 110.
Okay. And so that's what you were anticipating for enrollment?
Yeah, that's
So not
my
the
knowledge.
actual?
It is, we have 108 with school. Our budget is, or our enrollment is 108 at the moment.
Okay, but you said you budgeted for 110?
We had two budgets. We had a contingency budget, but we had 125 and 110 was our contingency. Do I correct in that assumption?
Okay, but you have 108,
108.
so you're
Currently.
shy too? Okay. You're coming.
Kathy Carty, Volumetric. Most of the budget is based on last year's numbers.
Okay.
So it wouldn't matter. That's why none of the numbers really changed between the 125 budget and the 110 budget, because all of the numbers for state funding and the different other funds are based on the average from third quarter last year, which was 90 students. So changing the number from 110 to 125 didn't affect what the funds are going to be for what we get this year.
Okay.
So that's why.
So I guess from there, my next question is, so thinking back to, class, I was here when you guys came and presented and got your charter approved, and you had your cap that you were looking at, and we're not there. But where do you see yourself needing to be to start to get out of this hole that is currently present? Like, what number do you need to get to?
We've tossed that around. Obviously, that's a very important number. And since so much of our budget is fundraising and grants and contributions, But I think the number we kind of land around is 250 for enrollment. You know, we need to be up in the 250 range. But again, if we're not in the 250 range, we increase our, we add another fundraiser, or we increase in contributions in another way. But 250 would, with everything else staying static, would probably be the number.
So if we don't get to the 250 and we stay around the 100 and so students, and we continue to have, you know, a deficit budget, basically, how does that impact the goals that you are outlining that you want to achieve for correcting some of the concerns that placed you in a place where you didn't get the rating that you wanted to have? So do you anticipate that if you don't get to the 250 and you continue to have a budget that is running in the negative, will you be able to achieve your goals that you have for yourself that are projected goals, so not things you already may have in place, but will you be able to still support those efforts if the budget does not get out of the negative range?
I mean, I think so. You know, we have our sponsoring entity behind us that is invested in seeing that we succeed. The new market structure itself is, and they all are behind us, wanting us to succeed. So they're partnering with us, and they're helping us, and they're giving us grace for these low enrollment years. And so everybody's invested in seeing ICA succeed. So CSA is going to continue to bring on that support for them in any way they can, and keep funding them. And we are in constant communication with the banks and the entities in the new market structure, and those are also on board with us as well.
Okay. And just for my clarification, how long does that grace extend?
Well, we have every year we have. I mean, Paul might address this better, but every year we ask, if we have to ask for a deferral, it is a year at a time. You know, we're in the process of the 26-27 deferral right now. So it just comes at a year at a time kind of thing.
Thanks. Just, I guess, for the Dean of Students, I have a question, just a clarifying question. So the band teacher
Yes, ma'am.
is coming on as the math teacher?
Michael Johnson, I say, not the band teacher. He was a former band teacher,
Okay,
and he went and became an engineer.
okay,
And then decided he didn't like all the hours of the engineering world, and with those math skills decided he would rather be in a regular classroom setting teaching mathematics.
okay.
Yes.
I was just thinking, because I know that, you know, we just got you out of serving in that dual role, so I was
Yes.
trying to figure out how
Yeah,
that was gonna
no,
work.
he's not trying to teach band and teach math. He is just teaching math. He just happened to be a former band teacher.
And I will say that I probably know just enough about all the things you were talking about to be extremely dangerous. I took a macro and micro class in undergrad and figured out business was not for me. But I do have some questions that I need to kind of get just a better understanding of how this process is going to evolve at the end. So what I was hearing you say is that, so currently is kind of also there's in that grace period where they're not having to pay the rent right now because it's being deferred out, and at the end, once is it the 7-year period, is that the end of the grace period?
Paul Parnell, Rose Law Firm. Yes, that's correct. Well, there's 2 periods. So there is the annual review with Hope on the extension that we were just referenced, and that's in process of being finalized now. Then in the new market structure, that's a 7-year program. It unwinds after year 7. That's a different part of it. So there's an annual piece that we're working through with Hope to get those enrollment numbers up. That's separate and apart from the 7-year period when the transaction unwinds and you have to reset.
Because I guess where I'm still kind of getting and I know we've asked it numerous ways, and I've tried to, get a clear understanding, is, so at the end of the 7-year period, there's the agreement that the funding source will say will walk away for $1,000, or?
That's the new market tax credit piece. The HOPE piece, so HOPE Credit Union was the source lender. And at the end of the 7-year period, you then have to work with the source lender to refinance that debt. So there's two loans, they come together, but the new market's tax credit piece goes away after year
For the
seven.
$1,000.
For the 1,000.
And then the
HOPE loan.
rent payments that have been accumulating that are not being paid at the end, the school will need to negotiate an amount that they're going to have to pay at the end. Is that what you're saying, or, I'm sorry?
Not necessarily. So at the end, once the new market tax credit piece is aside, you have to refinance or work through with HOPE or a successor lender to refinance the project, because it's going to look different. You don't have to have the complexity of the new market tax credit structure at that time. So what commonly happens is you refinance it. It is at that time, if the lease needs to be recast, the lease gets recast as part of that new financing structure at the end of the 7-year period.
So then at that point, that's when they become responsible for start paying rent. So the 7 years of rent that they haven't paid, then it's just like forgiven?
It's either forgiven or it's rebundled in a new financing package, because there will be a new lease that captures and will set out what the economics are at that time. So it's,
Mr. Baldwin, help me.
I think it also, I don't know that I would say the rent will be forgiven. I don't know anyone that would do that. That's not a good business practice. Why even have a lease if we're not gonna do that? But what you're saying is that it will get refinanced, that it'll just kind of go away and
it gets
refinanced.
refinanced, that's correct. It's really more of a refinancing transaction. So it's not that it's forgiven, it's,
Yeah, but the thing that requires a refinancing is a willing lender. And I think, right now, I don't think there's a lot of willing lenders lining up to do this. So if there's no willing lender, you don't refinance your default, because there's no one to pay off the HOPE debt.
that's correct. And that, it is a very key point. I mean, it is a true refinancing, at that time. And it's, CSA is a supporting organization, and so it, as part of that, it can, forgive or treat that as its contribution, but it's a refinance. And so it gets recast as part of that, or how it would typically happen.
Thank you. Okay. And then I do have a question for ADE Finance.
Tina Coleman, Department of Ed.
Yes, so, they have until the 31st to go back through all their books, get them all cleaned up, and have them to balance, correct?
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so from what you're seeing, and what currently is there, and what we have discussed, and what is actual, and then what maybe is, gifts and donations that are maybe coming through, I guess I'm trying to get an understanding, do we see that balance taking place on August 31st?
As far as accounting for the negatives with the donations for FY '26?
Yes.
Unless they've received that amount before August 31st, I don't see it balancing out, because it's a negative. But the bigger problem is the Uber report and the board report and the budget and that proposal, none of it matches. So I can dig and dig, but if the numbers don't match, they don't match. And if I'm not told where these numbers are coming from, I'm going by e-finance, because that's our system, that's what everything should be done through, is in e-finance. They do have till August 31st. If on August 31st, it's showing a negative, at that point, it's gonna create an error. AppScan then reaches out to me to approve closing out the year, and we go from there. But we are not in the habit of approving negatives at the end of the year.
Thank you. Well, those are my questions, so I will now open back up to any panel members that have any additional questions or anything we need to further clarify with either the charter office, legal, or finance.
I think it's a question, and it's kind of convoluted in a sense, but given the school is starting, and I guess it's a question what the strategy will be for increasing the number. Being that school has already started, it's reasonable to think that young people will be settled at least for a semester, likely a year. So how does your plan for recruitment meet up with the reality that students are already, if this were in July or June, and you talked about your recruitment strategies, how does the reality of young people are maybe not dissatisfied enough yet to change? And how does that impact the overall strategy or the thought pattern that we're gonna work to get enrollment up? So is that a challenge, or is it a thought, or what?
Michael Johnson, I see. Yeah, it's a challenge, and I will say that is something that we've focused on, is how do we continue to make movement throughout the school year. Kids still move schools throughout the school year. It happens. We gained students, we lost students last year and the year before. We know that the best thing we can do is, like I said, get out there, make those community connections, get out there where the students are, and let them see that us is a viable option. When you've got a school of 2,500 kids or so at Northside and close to that at Southside, knowing that they have another option has been viable. We've had many students the first year and the second year come to us 8 weeks into the school year, 9 weeks into the school year, due to just dissatisfaction at their current school. So as far as, do I think we're gonna go get 75 kids tomorrow? No, we're not. But do I think that the continued push for being out in the community and being a viable arts option that these other schools cannot offer, that is our case. We will have to be out there getting around these kids as best as we can. The districts aren't gonna let us just go walk in there and advertise ourselves, or we'd be a lot bigger than we are, because I think many kids would see us. And I think our continued work with the city of Fort Smith, as far as getting transportation, anybody that lives in the city of Fort Smith gets transportation to our school, and so continuing those relationships, and pushing that on the marketing end. Like I said, there's thousands and thousands of people in Fort Smith, and many still don't know who we are. So unless you have an answer on how I can just go out there and let every person in Fort Smith and Van Buren and Alma say, hey, here's this high school that you maybe don't realize is here, all we can do is continue to market to the best of our ability, and being involved with the community as much as possible.
So does the data support that the transition from one school to another is done? Does data support that it's a significant amount a semester, more significant a school year, or less likely to be able to attract the students because of where they've chosen to go at the time?
I would say that the data supports the idea that most of the students that enroll at the start of the school year, and I think we gained on average about somewhere between 7 to 10 students throughout the school year, transferring from other schools. We also get students transferring from out of state, which that's a whole other area that we can't market to, but a significant portion of our students that we get throughout the year do come from out of state.
Dr. Martin?
So, I don't know what to ask. I will start by saying my background's academics, and when I first saw Uber report, I was like, oh, why are they taking so many Ubers? So I had to dig in a little more. I'm not the only one. Okay.
No, you're not.
Thank you. Being my authentic self. But I just have so much hesitation and pause and concern about the financials and about the loan. It seems like a house of cards that could fall apart. So, but I know that's not my area of expertise. So I need to rely on someone like Mr. Baldwin to tell me, and I mean, even Dr. Bacon has, run charters enough and been heavily involved in financials. I'd really like to know your opinions and thoughts on this to help me go beyond my just layperson view of it, which I'm like, oh, this is very concerning.
So I think what my thought would be to create an agreed upon pathway forward where the school and the department could work together to resolve some of the financial differences that we have, and then also to create the pathway so that Mr. Bryan asked that we be clear on our expectations. I think we need to do that. I think we owe the school clarity on what to do, and they clearly accomplished a lot on academics, so I have hopes they can do it on the financial part too. But I think the clarity is necessary. So I've kind of worked on something here when we get to the motion point that would be, I think, detailed enough that it would create some clarity. You know, in the end, the way we are now is not sustainable. So we've got to go from here to somewhere else, either forward or backwards. So hopefully it's forwards, and I think it can be if we go forward.
And Ms. Stewart had a follow-up question.
Well, it kind of goes along with what Dr. Moore said, and it was honestly leaning on Mr. Baldwin. But I'm kind of in the same boat thinking about this, because is the key increasing enrollment? What is that number? Is the key getting cash in hand and not relying on the promise of grants or donations? You know, so those are the things I'm thinking about, and honestly, yeah, it's more questions than in my head than I'm comfortable with in how I'm thinking about this, frankly, because the academic piece is, yeah, fantastic. I mean, that you all are doing what you need to do there, and obviously we're all incredibly pleased and optimistic. So I think for me, like, those were the key questions that came out in my mind, and again, just leaning on Mr. Baldwin's expertise here to help guide this.
Yeah, I would say some of this, I think there's more information we need to really know what we're dealing with. I think Mr. Baldwin had talked about maybe balance sheet income statement, some other documents. I know to make a budget built off of a large number of donations, I would want to know that there's a commitment more than it's a dream. I've worked with schools before where if it's a dream, it ain't happening.
That's right.
If it's a commitment and if those pieces are in place, I do think that that's a viable revenue source. I mean, I also think they have until August 31st to do some reconciling and some things, and so we've heard about some real red flags. I don't know if 11 days is enough time to fix those or not, but I mean, certainly there's still an open window for some corrections to be made and things to be fixed. And so kind of in a place that I need a little more information to know how bad the situation might be long term, or if these are, you know, it's a young school, they've only been open 2 years. It's a small school. This is a thing that, you know, we have a lot of small charter schools, we have a lot of small districts, and in some cases we're going back to some small districts. It is difficult in a small setting. You got to make some tough financial decisions because revenue and expense. And I would hate for them to feel the need to start cutting back on some of the academic structures they put in place that are actually working and getting some phenomenal academic performance. But I feel like I just still need some more information to be able to know what's the appropriate, I think Mr. Baldwin's right, some steps and a plan of what needs to be in place, and total support. APSRC is here in mass. I know we've got the charter unit, we got DESE, but a total teamwork approach to be able to help a young school that is really unique in the whole state. I don't know of another school that in the arts that is doing what they're doing, but it's a small enrollment and they've got some struggles. And so I'm just talking. Tina, I think I'm just talking off, but I think it's there's more information I need that I think, and we can help build a plan to help them with the supports they need to to flesh this out over time.
Well,
Dr. Moore?
in a follow-up to that, y'all had mentioned that y'all were having problems with e-finance and that some struggles. That's the first time we've ever heard that. I'm kidding. So, yeah, I'm sure there are some questions with e-finance. So, did you get those questions answered, or are y'all still needing support in that? So, then my question to ADE and all those, who would that support best come from? Is that gonna come from the charter office, from our finance folks? Is that some APSRC? Who in our department is going to provide that help with e-finance?
Business manager, and we have taken.
Come to the microphone, sorry.
Yes.
Sorry, we've taken, I have a retired, business manager from Charleston School, Rita Gramlich, who is in-house with me at the school. Honestly, she's been very tremendously helpful. When I started doing e-finance, I've never been in it before, so I'm still learning. I learn daily, and I've had nothing but great help from APSRC and e-finance people. When I have a question, I put in a ticket, and it's within a short time that they're letting me know what I needed to do and get that right. So I'm still learning, but we have the people in place that are helping and supporting me. Like I said, we have a retired bookkeeper that's in-house now with me. Actually, she's there now while I'm here. So like I said, I am constantly learning. I'm going to training seminars. I'm coming up here for any type of a meeting that they have just to learn. I'm going to do some training more extensively this summer with the e-finance side of it. So yeah, it's just all in a learning process, but we're definitely going in the right direction in that.
So you do or do not feel that you all need more support? Because it was just voiced that y'all weren't getting your questions answered, so I wanted to make sure that the department was supporting you appropriately.
Oh, no, they're helping me. I just have a lot of questions. And so this is basically my first time going through the year end. I was there last year when we were going through this, but basically they were walking me through step by step, and it's a beast.
Okay, someone else from your school said differently, so that's why I would just.
Oh,
wanna make
okay.
sure. So,
Mills Bryant, attorney. Let me add a little context there too. So, ICA is able to use e-finance. And so what I think the State Department is seeing is only a fraction of the picture, because there's CCA finances and CSA finances as well. I think Paul has spoken to those, and there are separate books that, those entities are not able to use e-finance. And so in the scope of this meeting, what we were asked to provide is a budget. And so we provided a budget, and we're happy to provide additional financial documents from CCA, CSA where possible, to show you how the structure works. So hopefully this was beneficial to you to see how the structure is, and we can provide you financing documents that show you the backing of that structure. So that's kind of the e-finance pieces. It's just a fraction of the picture because it just applies to ICA. These other entities have differing financial bookkeeping systems that we can provide to you to show you additional context, and that would help the State Department as well, I believe. So, and that goes back to GAAP principles. The statute requires generally accepted accounting principles, and so as long as the books are in that position, I think that we've met the burden, and we want you to see the full picture. So if you want to see that, let us know, and we'd be happy to provide.
Yes, that's going to be extremely important because, of course, when we get the reports from ADE, they don't have access to, as what was admitted to, a separate reporting structure, then it is going to not show you in a favorable light.
Absolutely.
But there is still those concerns about counting in amounts that are through gifts and donations that are not hard numbers, and allow that to be a part of the budget. That is still a concern.
Absolutely, Mills Bryant, attorney, absolutely, and we hope to address those concerns. And but we just hope that the additional documentation will provide you additional context for our decisions, and hopefully we can remedy these issues. Thank you.
Questions or comments? Okay, if there are not any other questions from panel members, then I will entertain a motion on this action item agenda.
So I've been thinking about that and working on that, and this can be long, but I think it gives the pathway forward. That's my hope.
Sorry. I'm sorry. So sorry. So sorry, Mr. Baldwin. Okay, I'm sorry. So we have another comment from ADE Finance.
Tina Coleman,
Okay.
Department of Ed. I'm not understanding what they're saying, these two separate systems. From what I'm gathering, it's gonna create a mess, and it's not gonna balance. Because if you've got two separate systems and I can only see one of them, I can't validate any of the information I'm receiving, if that makes sense. So if there was another system, we don't have access to it.
Right. Is there any questions? Sorry, if you would wait a second. Is there questions from panel?
I guess this is just sort of a bigger question than from my perspective, because you're talking about what is school-related info that's in e-finance, which is all that you can base on. They're talking about another organization. You know, when I was at Easton, we had a CMO that supported the school in ways. But what you would need to see is if there's money that CSA has that is there supporting ICA, you need to see that in actually donations or outside revenue given to ICA that shows up in e-finance, that shows the money is in fact there supporting the school effort, as opposed to it's in a separate entity, because all you can function with is what you see in e-finance, and that's what
Correct.
the school is.
Correct. So what's plugged into e-finance then feeds to Uber. So if they're working out of e-finance and whatever this other system is, nothing's gonna match up. So on their bookkeeper's end, if she's not seeing a negative, I can understand that because she's looking at completely different numbers in a different system that I don't see and I don't have access to.
So between now and August 31st, for you to feel confident in closing out FY26 for them, whatever's there that CSA perhaps has resources needs to find its way into the ISA e-finance portal to show that the balances are in fact there, the funds are in fact there, available and used by the school. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Correct, but also I just don't understand the purpose of two separate systems if you're not putting the same information into both of them. I would need them to literally walk us through every single line. Along with AppScan, I would imagine AppScan is literally across the hall from me on the fourth floor of this building. And whenever they have a question with coding, funding, they come to my office for the answers, for the support, and so far we haven't been questioned on anything related to any of this. So this is the first time I'm hearing of a separate system.
Yeah, and it may be terminology. What they're talking about, as Dr. Moore said, that does not give me heartburn because I know that there's an entity that has the funds that's separate. But what it gives me heartburn on what you're seeing and what needs to be for the school's perspective, those funds can't be in a separate entity that says we're backing you. The funds need to find their way into e-finance, into the budget, as we've talked about, you know, documented, so that the school entity shows that it's in the black and that it is not having these deficient areas in their e-finance reporting.
Correct. And if Greg Rogers is here, he can even come speak on this even further on the issue that this can potentially create.
Yeah. So I'm just trying to make sure for our people here that have the CSA back support from CSA, that we help make sure they understand what needs to happen to make the school solvent in the short run and in their budgeting process. Because you can't do anything other than what is in the e-finance and what represents the school, and right now the school is looking in the red pretty significantly.
Correct. And that's what we're feeding off of when it comes to their funding. Every single thing is going to come out of e-finance.
And so as I said, sort of needing more information, I know we have August 31st. From my perspective, we need someone working with ICA and through CSA to make sure that the funds that are there that CSA holds and is using to support ICA, that the proper work is done so that e-finance reflects that those funds are in fact in the school now and being used to pay bills that can then allow a transfer over so the unrestricted balance can be in the positive, right? I mean, you're in the weeds that many people may not be, but I've been in your weeds, and so I know exactly what you're saying. But I think we have a short window for support with CSA and ICA to make sure that what is reflecting on the school reflects the way it can and can be positive, so that from a checkpoint, you know, Desi can say, okay, e-finance, this is fine for now. We can sign you off on FY26, and now we're looking at 27 to make sure that we put the systems in place, that the funds are there. The lease payment and that big lump is over here separate to me. But it's all, you know, it's a pressure point. But in terms of what you're talking about, I know exactly what you're talking about. And if the money's in CSA, but not in ICA, and I'm going to use another letter here in a minute, that that's not where it needs to be able to close books on FY26. They've got to be in the black on the school side.
Correct, and just getting money from whatever the other acronym was to put into e-finance, it's not a matter of here's X amount of money, we're just gonna drop in as revenue.
Right.
Because then that's gonna create an auditing issue down the road. So we want to do everything correct up front and all be on the same page so we don't have to have these conversations later.
So can
in the
I
year.
ask a question of all the important people in the room and anyone that may know? So they have 11 days to close the books on FY26
Yes, sir.
and to make some adjustments. Who will help them between now and August 31st with the processes and structures to give them the best chance to close their books for ICA on FY26 with a positive fund balance?
They have a dedicated AppScan rep who is strictly over, well, she does all with the charters. That would be the absolute best place to start. And then from there, they can kick some of it to me and I can walk the AppScan person through it. The charter can call me directly. I can answer their questions. But it's gonna be a matter of getting with their AppScan person and working it out. And AppScan is more than willing to do that. I sat in one of their offices yesterday. They were on the phone for 3.5 hours with the charter, so that's not an issue. They're willing to do it. It's a matter of them, they need all the information too, because they can't work off of just verbal without proof from another system, because they don't have that access either.
So can I ask from CSA, ICA perspective, do you all understand what we're talking about and what needs to happen in the next 11 days? And to reach out to, whether it's AppScan, was her name Tina? Tina, here
Panel,
at DESI.
you know, normally I don't get out of order, but
Okay.
I wanted to make sure that we had that before you finished your motion. So forgive us stepping out of the space, but please reintroduce yourself and then.
Kathy Carty, Volumetric. Yeah, we understand that we've got the 11 days and we are working with the state, you know, and trying to get this worked out. And I want to address real quickly the separate systems. We don't have separate systems other than the fact that we have e-finance, which is under regulatory accounting, and we have QuickBooks accounting, which is GAAP. And Mr. Baldwin has asked for GAAP accounting here. We kept everything that we brought under the regulatory system because that's what we thought that y'all wanted to see. So that's my bad for not realizing that we could have brought, you know, GAAP financials. That doesn't mean they're separate sets of books or that we're keeping two different. It's just the way you do accounting. We're under the accrual basis for GAAP. We're under the cash basis for e-finance. We have to use that accrual basis for these banks. We also do them for our board so they understand it a little bit better because e-finance is a little hard to understand. So that's the two sets of books. Additionally, you know, again, we keep talking about the difference in the 25-26 numbers that y'all have on the appendix versus what that she's seeing now. That is simply us working really, really hard trying to get that period 13 adjustments together. And so we bound this report up, you know, a while ago. And so yes, the numbers have changed, but that doesn't mean that we don't completely agree with the numbers in e-finance that she's looking at now. We just didn't get those updated in time to have those here. But yes, GAAP accounting, regulatory accounting, different animals. We realize now that y'all want to see that. So we will absolutely provide that. And it shouldn't match. I will also say that. It is not necessarily going to match e-finance, and that's okay, because they're separate systems of doing accounting.
I'm looking at it as two separate entities. There's ICA, the school, and then there's
Mhm.
CSA, as I'm assuming is a nonprofit organization that supports the school.
Mhm.
This panel doesn't deal with what CSA is
Right.
dealing with. This panel is looking at helping support the school from the school side, the
Mhm.
ICA side. I don't want to call you by your name, but I keep saying, Tina, what is your last name? I feel disrespectful. Ms. Coleman is telling us, so from the DESI side, for the school perspective, there's certain things that have to be there, and we
Sure.
have until August 31st to make sure those things are there. If there's
Yes.
money sitting over here that CSA has, that their intent is to support ICA, there needs to be some work done in the next 11 days to get that money properly into the ICA so that journal
Absolutely.
entries can be done to show that this unrestricted balance
Absolutely.
is black, that the total balance is black. And I don't want to get to worry about the two systems, we're focused on ICA.
Well, and I am too. When
Yeah.
I say there's two systems, I mean for ICA.
Yeah.
ICA has the GAAP financials, ICA has the regulatory financials, okay? So I think that's what she's referring to. It is for ICA. Both of those coexist at the same time. But yes, we are committed to getting this done in the next 11 days and getting the money over.
I am not an accountant, and I understand what you're talking about, but I'm telling you, having run a school from the DESI and the authorizing side,
Mhm.
you need to make sure e-finance is clear and handled
Absolutely.
and addressed appropriately. And the gap side, we'll talk about that separately in a session, but e-finance is where this panel holds you accountable, because that's what
Absolutely, which is
DESI
why we brought the
uses.
e-finance
Yeah.
budget to you.
And I'm telling you, if I were you, in the next 11 days, I would get my e-finance cleared up by using funds available through CSA,
Absolutely.
because that's what we may take action on.
Yeah, and I guess that's why I'm slightly confused by you saying they shouldn't match. And again, I'm gonna rely on my buddies, Mr. Baldwin and Dr. Bacon, to better understand that. But from our perspective, there has to be a match of what e-finance is seeing and what you're saying that you have, because that's how they're able to verify and reconcile that what is
Right.
what.
And absolutely.
And we're only commenting on testimony that was provided here today, that there's two systems that are running based off of what ICA has and then what e-finance has. So that we're only speaking on, that was
Mhm.
testimony that was provided today. So
Okay.
I don't want you to feel like that we kind of made that up and are writing
No,
on
no,
that.
I understand.
So that's something that was provided in testimony today, that you guys are operating on two systems based off of how your structure
Mhm.
is set up. And
Yes.
so if that's going to be the case,
Mhm.
then, you're gonna have to figure out a way to make it make sense for e-finance to where they can see what you have, and it has to be something they can verify. If that makes sense.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah. Any other questions or comments? Thank you for that additional information. Thank you for giving us that time to further talk through that. Again, we want you as a charter to be able to walk away from this conversation with at least a foundational understanding of what needs to happen going forward, because again, we're here to support you and help you to understand how to best operate, not just the academic side, because the finance side as well, because that was the question that I raised, is if we continue to have financial issues, how does that begin to impact what happens in your school, because you just can't afford to do all the things that you want to do. So that's what we're just trying to get to. So is there any other questions or comments from panel members? Any other additional information that needs to be provided before we move forward with offering a motion for consideration? Very good. So, going back to Mr. Baldwin, so you're recognized to offer a motion.
Sorry about that. Okay, so I'm going to walk through this step by step I move that we accept the division's recommendation that the school's current academic, financial, and operational conditions warrant heightened intervention and oversight, and therefore approve the following actions. One, issue a formal notice of performance breach based on unresolved financial and reporting concerns that raise significant questions regarding the school's financial sustainability and compliance with its charter obligations. Two, require the school within 30 days to submit a reconciled financial statement aligned with the Arkansas Department of Education's UBER financial reporting data and certified by both the board treasurer and the school's independent certified public accountant. Three, require the school within 30 days to provide all new markets tax credit and sublease documentation, including the executed sublease agreement and any lease service coverage ratio covenants, to enable the authorizer to determine whether prior commissioner approval was obtained or required pursuant to 6 CAR 31411A5 statutes. Require monthly financial reporting. That includes balance sheet, income statement, and statement of cash flows presented on a GAAP basis. Revenues and expenditures compared to budget, with detailed listings of revenue items involving contributions, community support, and other outside fundraising activities. Provide a cash position and days cash on hand report. Enrollment compared to projections, month by month. A written explanation for any budget variance exceeding 10%. All reported figures shall reconcile to the department's UBER financial reporting data and the school's reconciled financial statement. Okay, number 5. Conduct 2 authorizer monitoring visits, one in October of 26 and one in February of 27. The October 26th visit shall assess implementation of the school's improvement plan, the effectiveness of the Tier 3 intervention framework, and the quality of mathematics instructions and programming. The visit shall also include a review of private fundraising efforts, including donor outreach activities, pledged contributions, and funds received to date. The February 2027 visit shall evaluate winter interim assessment results against the benchmarks and performance targets established in the school improvement plan. The visit shall also include a review of the school's financial condition, including cash position, year-to-date financial performance, and projected cash flow for the remainder of the school year. Number 6, adopt the school's submitted improvement plan as the official corrective action plan, utilizing the school's stated performance targets where appropriate, and monitor progress toward the identified goals, benchmarks, and outcomes. Further, the ADE Charter Office is asked to issue all required notices, implement the monitoring and oversight activities necessary to carry out this action, and provide reports back to this authorizer on the school's progress towards satisfying the conditions and timelines established in this motion.
Okay. We have a motion by Mr. Baldwin. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Motion by Mr. Baldwin, second by Ms. Stewart. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Can I get just a clarification, because the notice of performance breach is new to me. What does that really constitute from a legal perspective or from DESI's perspective? I just would like to know what that means. The two people I need to hear from are talking in the back of the room, I think.
Mills Bryant, attorney. I've got some painting to do on that language as well. I think I know where that language comes from, and I think it comes from an executive report that we received pursuant to a FOIA request yesterday. And that language is, I believe, from an appendix to a charter contract that is not in ICA's charter contract. And so this level-tiered system of performance deficiency is not something that ICA is bound under, and I don't think that's overly problematic, other than, you know, that language is just language that we're not bound to under that appendix. So in reviewing this executive summary report that we received, that's the language that it uses, and ICA is not bound by that language. And, you know, I would just want to clarify whether the board and the panel is taking any sort of formal action against ICA, because, you know, the statute allows a revocation, a moderation, or a probation. And I think if anything, this falls into a probation category. However,
Can I interrupt for just a second? So probably what we, the clarifying request was to ADE staff. And so if we could get them to clarify first and then go from there. And at this point, the discussion is for the panel. And so, but I do appreciate your comments. But we would like to hear from ADE on the clarification of that.
I understand that. Will I be able to be heard after that about it, just an objection to this motion if there is one?
Okay. We'll let legal be able to address that as well. Okay, thank you.
Hi, Julia Rainey, ADE Legal. Could you repeat the question, please?
Well, so I just was, it's more on language and from my understanding of what does a formal notice of performance breach mean in practice for this school and from a legal perspective or any other perspective?
Daniel Schultz, AD Legal. So just to clarify, there's no adverse action being taken here today, and that is, it's my understanding that this is part of the cooperative oversight in light of the reasons that have already been discussed. So there's no probation, there's no other adverse action that's formally set out in the rules or in the statute. That's not here. That might be a future step, but that's not what this is. I think it's being intimated, if not actually stated, that wasn't what was noticed for today, and that's not what we're doing here today. That if ever that came to it, it'd be a future meeting. So if that addresses your question.
Well, it doesn't. It leads me to another one. So,
Okay.
am I hearing you say that notice of performance breach cannot be done today, or it's not?
Oh, I mean, so a note, you
It's
could
not.
give notice. I'm
Okay,
saying you
okay.
can't take an adverse action
Okay, and
based
that's
on
not,
notice.
that wouldn't be classified as an adverse action from,
No, you might be noticing a future action. I don't have what you're talking about in front of you, so Julie, if you want to add anything, you can. But I'm saying as far as the formal steps that you can take that are adverse to the district, that's not what we're here to do today. You can give notice and I think what you're saying is we're saying we see an issue here that needs to be addressed, but you're not taking any action on that issue today. You're just raising it.
okay.
Are there any other comments from charter office or from finance that need to be addressed?
Daryl Smith, Department of Education. Again, I think as the legal has stated, the terminology is not where there is no formal action being taken. Basically, this is a notification that there is concern, an escalated concern, based on the financials that we have been received through Uber and other things. That is the intent, and that is exactly what that was read into the motion. So there is no formal action being taken based on this notice, other than it is a written notification of the departments and charter's office's concern that there is some things there in their financials that we still need to figure out. So that was the intent.
Thank you.
And then just to clarify, because of that, there is no adverse action being taking place today. It is, again, a matter of that there are some financial concerns that were addressed and were brought up and discussed in detail, and they're still present. And so that's why that was made a part of the motion. Okay. Does that satisfy?
Mills Bryant, attorney, yes, no objection, thank you.
Okay. So with that,
Thank you.
we have a motion by Mr. Baldwin and a second by Ms. Stewart. Any more discussion on the motion from the panel members? Okay, seeing none, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed, like sign. Any that would like to abstain from the vote? Okay, very well, motion carries. Thank you. Okay, so that brings us to our consent agenda, and it looks like that Dr. Turker has something there, or do you not have anything? Okay. Your turn. So he's stating he doesn't have anything. So then our next item are our minutes from our previous meeting, and that's being presented by Mr. Freddie Scott from the Charter Office.
Freddie Scott Office of School Choice and Parent Empowerment. Panel, you have before you a set of minutes from the June 18th Charter Authorizing Panel meeting for your consideration of approval.
Move approval. Okay, looks like everyone's had a chance to review those. So we had a motion by Ms. Newton for approval. Is there a second?
A second.
Second.
Okay, second by Dr. Moore. So all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Any abstentions? Okay, any reports? No, any public comments? None? Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you.